Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Oh, salute, my friend. Good to see you. Salute. Always good to see you. I wish I didn't see you so often after mass shootings, though.
Yeah.
Because it seems like so many times when there's a gun control. Well, you're the first guy I always call. Because I think you're the very best at explaining gun issues from, first of all, from a Second Amendment perspective, from an enthusiast perspective, and also you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
So you understand like the law aspect of it better than anybody that I know. So I always want to talk to you when some shit is going down. But the current mass shooting, the most recent one, was it's like there's so many of them that it gets to a point where you go like people almost just go numb. Like they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of scrambling and crying out for legislation. Yeah.
I think it's one, no one can deny our media does a beautiful job memorializing everything about every mass shooting in terms of the killer, what we know about him, we, for the most part, almost sensationalizing it. And so there is something to be said that, someone walking into a school, somebody walking into a building where you don't expect it and shooting a bunch of people deserves that type of attention. I'm not going to be so naive as to say that, I don't get why they cover it so much. But there is a admitted sense of helplessness when these things happen.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, so what do we do? What can we do? I think the scapegoat route is gun control. Because I think what it does is it gives us the immediate gratification of, all right, we did something, we passed this, all right, let's move on and hope it never happens again. The problem is, though, it never touches the underlying issues about why people would do this. This is weird. It's fucking odd. It's not normal for people to want to go out and just kill as many people as possible.
Well, not just that, just kill children.
That's even that, and that takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah,
right?
and this guy, obviously there was something really wrong with him. You're out. But the thing about the killing the children is that's why school shootings are so fucked, because they're the most horrific version of a mass shooting because you're going after innocent little kids. Yep. And this was the most evil. And then there's so much to this one, right? There's so much to the amount of time that the cops were outside that they didn't do anything because they didn't want to get shot.
But that's just it too, though, which is the weird thing for me. So we can acknowledge that in this situation, the same situation that happened in Florida, right? The resource officer didn't go in time when he could have probably stopped it sooner.
But at least that was one guy.
True.
This is insane. I mean, how many cops were outside that school?
Jesus. Enough that they should have probably went in. Without saying. But
they were outside for 75 minutes. Could you imagine?
But that's just it, though, if you think about it. Like, the same people, not the same people, but then you'll have people who say, okay, well, we need to limit and restrict these guns. And I'm like, but all that does is force us to depend on people who we've already established in a lot of situations aren't necessarily incapable of being there to protect us, or in situations like this, refusing to go in and protect us. Now, I can see someone coming up on the other side saying something like, oh, so you want the kids to have guns there too so they can shoot? It's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah. But what I am saying is that further justifies why we need to have the firearms that we do have. Because at the end of it, when it all boils down to it, the only person we can rely on to defend ourselves is us, is you. Somebody walks in this door right now and does something. The only people in a position to stop it in enough time to make a difference is me, you,
and Jamie. Yeah.
So from that perspective, I try to keep things and break things down to that simplistic level so people can understand that. Instead of just kind of immediately reacting to, all right, let's ban this and let's ban that, let's ban this. But we are talking about, like you said, a group of officers who stood outside while kids were being shot and killed.
Those guys should never be cops again.
I'm going to have to agree with you in that regard.
This
is me not being in Uvalde, not knowing all of the intimate details about why they stood down. But at the end of the day, I have a hard time seeing what supersedes. There's a guy in classrooms killing kids right now.
Well, you know about the mom that was arrested?
Yep.
They cuffed her. They released her. She went back in, got her kids. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah for her. Horrible that she had to do that. But the fact that they cuffed her, that's fucking
that's unacceptable.
insane.
It's utterly unacceptable.
I don't understand. I just don't understand. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but nothing has been exposed. There's nothing that's been explained.
I think there's a part of me that wants to believe, right, that there was some extenuating circumstance that justified, and I don't see it. I can't. Even my imagination, as vivid as it is, can't think of something that would substantiate or justify why they hadn't gone in.
Well, it's a perfect storm, right? Because we're in a terrible time for law enforcement in that, all this defund the police stuff has gotten people very skittish about, I know cops that don't want to do things because they don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to show up for things. They want to wait before they show up for things because they don't want it to be something they have to handle because they feel tied up. They feel like their hands are tied.
Yeah. It's a balancing act too, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we don't necessarily want cops to go in there, I don't mean just in this particular situation, Uvalde, but just be completely let off the leash to the extent that they can do anything that they want anytime and there'll be no...
Of course.
They can't be held accountable for anything, right?
Yes.
While at the same time, we need them to go in without having to essentially be attorneys,
yeah,
in the moment, trying to decide. Like I was just in Wisconsin, and I was with the USCCA, which is a concealed carry insurance membership program, and what we were doing was working scenario-based training. So they set up this whole situation for me. Like we're in a coffee shop, I have a girlfriend that I'm talking to, and then a guy comes in, robs the place, and a bunch of other scenarios that happen. And because of my knowledge base and things that I'm aware of from a legal perspective, even in that moment when I'm trying to decide, do I shoot, do I not shoot? Because you ever run Sims?
No.
Sims are like they're basically real guns converted into more or less fake guns, so to speak. So they shoot these cartridges that hurt like a bitch. They hurt and they're really loud. The gun operates the same. Everything's the same except they shoot these. It's kind of like elevated paintball, right? And in this case, we weren't using the actual projectile. What we were using was what this did is it emitted a laser instead of actually shooting a projectile. But everything else was the same. It was loud, recoil, and all of that stuff. And so in that moment, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all right, when is it justified for me to shoot? Now, in that moment, in that scenario, you can only kind of mimic reality to a certain extent before, you get overwhelmed with the thought of, okay, I might die. I had the benefit to some degree to kind of think logically through, okay, if I shoot now, is it justified? If I don't shoot now, and so forth and so on.
Are you talking about like from a legal perspective?
From a legal perspective, yes. And so in that moment, when the guy's in there, he's already shot at one person, he's about to shoot another person, I'm like, okay, this is my time to shoot, but he's not shooting at me. And so I'm like, what do I do? Can I shoot him and be justified? Or
so if you're like, let's say if you go into a store and you see a gunfight in the store and you see a guy shooting at someone behind the counter and you're armed, are you allowed to shoot him?
It depends.
If he's shooting at people that work at the store.
Well, it depends. Because if you find out later on that the guy behind the counter pointed his gun at him and said, I'm going to kill you.
Right. Imagine if you shot him first.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't know. Like, you walk into 7-Eleven, there's a gunfight.
Yep. You don't know. And so in that situation, and I'm probably kind of giving away too much information because the video's not out yet, but I think it's necessary. So the guy walks in. He says he's robbing the place. He hadn't shot anyone yet. But he starts arguing with another person. And the other guy's supposed to be like a new concealed carrier. And then the guy stands up. He's like, yo, what is your problem? What are you doing? And he's kind of angling towards his gun, but he's not. He hasn't gone for it yet. The other guy has a gun too, the guy who came in to rob the place. But he hasn't pointed his gun at anyone. He hasn't shot anyone. So at that point, theoretically speaking, you could argue that's just mutual combat.
Yeah.
Right? So which one can I shoot? Who's actually endangering who?
Right.
Right? So I ended up shooting the guy who came to rob the place. The problem is I shot him in the back too. But that was from the standpoint of when I decided to shoot, I know how to shoot. So I dropped 4 or 5 rounds just naturally into the guy. He's like, oh shit, he turns around because he's getting shocked as I'm shooting him. So he turns to run.
So is it like a laser that sets off like a haptic feedback?
Yeah, so you're wearing a vest, right? It's called a stress vest. So you're wearing a stress vest, and so it sends out a laser every time you hit that person, and it shocks you.
And does it shock you like a taser? Does it shock?
It's as bad as you want it to be.
Really? So you could get it to the point where it immobilizes your body?
I don't think it gets that high. I think it gets to the point where you're like, okay, get this thing off me.
Have you ever been tased?
No.
I haven't either,
Yeah.
but I've watched people get tased, and I'm curious.
I'm not.
Because some people can just fucking handle it,
They
man.
can't. But aren't they usually high?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I think sometimes they're high.
But how does that stop your body from shutting off due to the electricity?
That is true. That I don't know.
Because I've seen people just get zapped, and they just stand there,
Yeah,
and
like
they just
nothing.
pull
And
the
they pull
shit right out of the
yeah.
body.
Now, I did see this one video guy did that. The cop was being very patient with the guy. And he zapped him, and he nothing. And he's like, all right. And he zapped him again, he dropped.
Really,
So,
second time he dropped.
So I don't know what part,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. That's outside of my wheelhouse, honestly.
My friend Dana White, he went for one of his shows. They all got tasered, and they felt like their body just shut off. Like they just fell over.
See, I'm not. The funny thing about it is I had the stress vest on too. So when I was doing it, so the whole time I'm like, I don't want to experience this.
Yeah, fuck
so
that.
yeah.
So if he
kinda,
hit you, he turned and hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious of what that's like. I'm sure it's horrible. You know.
I mean, I'll put it like this: when I shot him, he yelled. So I'm assuming it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, I still ended up shooting him in the back.
Now, is that legal? Because he's not. You are not in danger. You're just acting almost like as law enforcement, or as protection.
So in that particular case, once we broke it down, my shooting was justified, right? But it just goes to show you how thin that line is between justified and unjustified.
And doesn't it also in that situation, was there cameras involved?
Yeah.
Because it's in a store.
Yeah.
But what if you're in a school, like in a school situation? Like if you walked in and shot that guy who was killing those kids and you shot him in the back, clearly you'd be justified.
Yeah, you'd be justified
right?
at that because that's in defense of a third party.
Okay.
Right. So at that point, all bets are off. Like whether I shoot you in the back, front, side. But I guess the argument that could be made in my particular situation is he was retreating.
Right.
Right, because he was running out. That's why I shot him, because he turned to run away. And so it was and it happens really quickly.
Right.
And the split times between my trigger pull are pretty fast. So it's like bang, 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 bang. And,
Right.
That time period, he can turn and catch one in the back. But you get an aggressive enough prosecutor, that's the argument they made. If I was a prosecutor, that's the argument I would make.
You know about the case in Austin where a guy was not charged for a long period of time, but it was at one of the protests during the pandemic, and this guy apparently was military, and he was an Uber driver. He was Uber driving.
I do remember that. Yeah.
So he pulled down this road. I think he was following his GPS, and he pulled down this road, and all of a sudden he's faced with the people that were blocking the road.
protesting, yeah.
And this guy pulls an AK-47 out and points it at him.
Yeah.
And
then he shoots him.
he's a veteran.
Yeah.
I mean, he's used to being in live combat situations, and he just pulls out his gun
And shoots him.
and shoots him.
Yeah. Did he get charged?
He did get charged.
Did he get convicted?
I don't know.
Okay, 'cause I
Let's
can't
find
remember
out what the status on that was, because all of my friends that are law enforcement or military were furious that he got charged, because this guy literally pointed the gun at his face.
Yeah.
Like he's standing there
I'd shot
pointing
him.
the gun. What are you going to do? It's like, how do you know if the guy's going to kill you or not?
Right.
Like, it's unreasonable to point a gun at a person in that scenario.
But you know what that speaks to?
What?
Education.
Education.
Dude, like I in my videos, I say this time and time again. We have over 400 million guns in this country, man. You're not getting away from the guns. You're not.
And if you take them away from legal people that have them legally,
The only people who are going to have them
are the people that have them illegally.
Exactly. And so if we understand that this is the country that we live in, we have a Second Amendment, we understand the culture in this country, why do we not spend just even a decent amount of resources on a federal level, and let's say local level, to teach people the dynamics involved with firearm ownership?
let me ask you this. One of the things about people that are pro Second Amendment is they don't want to change any of the restrictions or the way it's set up right now. They want to keep it exactly the way it is in terms of what kind of background checks exist. And they don't want to add any sort of additional checks, any sort of additional restrictions. Why is it so easy to get a gun license?
Because efficiency.
But why is it so hard to get a driver's license?
Because people suck at driving.
But don't people suck at shooting?
Some do. A lot of people
A
do.
lot of people
Yeah.
do,
The difference,
right?
though, too, is we're talking about a constitutional right versus a privilege.
when I got a concealed carry permit, I had to go through an extensive examination, which also involved showing that you are proficient at shooting. Why don't people have to do that?
Well, because we are talking about a constitutional right. So the standard is a lot different than say, okay, we're giving you the privilege to drive this car on the road. So like with the car, I can own any car I want. If I have private property, I can drive all over that private property without any education, without any instruction or any of that stuff. Now, the moment I want to step out into the public with this car and drive it on public roads, that's when I have to get licensed, get registration, and all of those things.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to have a gun and they want to take it somewhere, then they have to go through these examinations.
Generally speaking. So like,
but not
that
here.
used to be the case in Texas. Now, no. Now we have constitutional carry, which means that you don't have to go through those procedures in order to carry a firearm.
So here's the story. Uber also released a statement. Unfortunately, we aren't able to comment on pending litigation. This is about the guy who's an Uber driver. As we've released in the past, this incident is not related to the Uber platform. It says, for now, this gentleman, Perry, remains indicted on multiple charges, including murder in this case. In August, his attempt to get the murder charge dropped was denied. From what I understand, this is has to do with the district attorney in Austin. That they, we have a lot of very liberal district attorneys in this country. They just repealed the guy in San Francisco to screams and cheers of people who are dealing with unprecedented crime and homelessness there. And
don't get me started on San Francisco, bro.
Oh, you're the one who told me about it. You're the one who explained to me the whole homeless situation, and we've talked about it multiple times and credited you with explaining it. You know, since you're a lawyer and you understand like the inner workings of the machine in a way that I probably don't.
I'll be honest with you. You know what got me to understand it? It wasn't me being a lawyer. It was me being on the ground and seeing this shit and talking to the people. That's what really set it off for me. Because when I was with the NRA and we were doing these mini documentaries, going to these different places and talking to the people on the ground, they were explaining stuff to me. You can watch the video. You see it in my face. Like, I'm like, the same way you reacted is the same way I reacted when I first heard it.
I thought it was a funding thing. I thought like we need more money for homelessness. And then when I realized that it's a business, it's like a light bulb went off. When you explained it to me, I was like, of course. It's like everything else. When you showed me the numbers and the people in LA making $260,000 a year to deal with the homeless situation and it's not going anywhere, I'm like, that person has a fucking great job.
You know, I actually analogized that to the issue with gun violence in the inner city.
How so?
So, it's a theory. Do I have concrete data to affirm it? Nope. But I think to a degree, a lot of these leaders and politicians in the inner city need that violence in the inner city to continue as a way to justify the necessity for them being in the positions that they're in.
Like what kind of positions?
So, if you think about it, the vast majority of the gun violence in this country is from the inner city. Like overwhelmingly so.
The numbers are crazy. Like when people talk about gun violence in this country, maybe we should start with that, right? Mm-hmm. Gun violence in this country, when you look at gun deaths, a gigantic percentage of them are suicides.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say about 63 to 65% are suicides.
Okay. So when we're talking about gun violence, I mean, I'm not in favor of suicide.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I want people to get help and live happy lives. But this is not my main concern. My main concern is people harming other people.
Yeah.
So when we look at the numbers of gun violence, it's always exaggerated because they don't include the fact that is a
they're starting to
number.
do it now. They did it before.
Yeah, I only hear about it on Fox News.
Yeah, like they legit. I remember because this was like at the genesis kind of my 2A advocacy when I was looking at the numbers because I kind of initially just took the numbers for what they were. And I just assumed, because you hear gun violence, you hear gun deaths. You're thinking people shooting at other people in the middle of the street and dropping dead, right? And then I started looking into the numbers, and I started realizing, wait, 63 to 65% are suicides? And like I point out, it's not that I don't care about suicides, but then I also backdoored and I said, okay, well, let's look at the suicide rate just as a whole in America versus other places that have strict gun laws. And I remember when I was on Bill Maher and I was sitting at the round table, we kind of started getting into that discussion. And you would think, considering we have as many guns as we have in this country in the hands of civilians, you'd think, on the surface, we'd lead the world in suicides. We don't. We're not even close. So that stands to reason that the issue with suicides isn't a gun thing. It is purely a mental health thing.
Yes.
right? So that's why I'm able to, okay, let's set this aside and now deal with what's remaining. Then you have a very small percentage that are accidental gun deaths, right? We're talking about like maybe totality in a year, 1,000.
And what percentage is that
That,
about?
I think it's like, if I remember correctly, it's like 3 to 5%.
Okay.
Or something like that.
So
And-
we're almost at 70% then.
Yeah.
We're at like 68.
And that's including,
somewhere?
and then there's another percentage that includes officer shootings, whether it's officer shooting a criminal or a criminal killing an officer, right? So we can put that over here as well, because that's a different dynamic.
What percentage are officers shooting?
That's sitting somewhere in about also 2 to 3%. I'm probably flipping it. I don't know if the accidental gun deaths are about 2 to 3 and the officers like 5, if I'm not mistaken. But
we could find out.
Yeah.
Jamie will pull it up so we could get an accurate assessment of it.
But to get to where we want to go is essentially homicides with firearms. That's
Right.
where we want to be. And generally speaking, you got a range of about 8 to 12,000 people every year die from actually being shot by another person. That includes mass shootings, everything.
Right. And then what percentage of those are gang related?
So, because the whole gang-related, because now what's happening is they're taking a lot of the gang-related shootings and including them in mass shootings. It's just kind of like what happened in Philadelphia recently,
I
right?
see what you're saying.
They called the Philadelphia shooting that just happened recently a mass shooting.
What was the Philadelphia one?
It was basically, there was a shootout between, I don't know how many people it was, but there was like, I can't remember exactly where in Philly it was, but essentially, I can't remember, a lot of people got shot, and they called it a mass shooting. It was street violence. That's what it was. It was two parties going at it, and they called it mass shooting. I guess you could argue why that's considered a mass shooting, but it's not. But in our minds, when we think about it, a mass shooting is somebody, you have an individual or multiple people who want to go and kill as many innocent people as possible. Right? We're not talking about people who are shooting each other over disputes. This was a dispute that took place in the public between two people with guns, essentially. And so they want to call that a mass shooting. And I'm like, that's not fair, because the way to deal with these types of things, there's different. The same way you don't include the suicides and the homicides, because there are different reasons for why they're happening, right? And so a lot of the vast majority of the gun violence, the homicide aspect of it, is from the inner cities. That's where it's coming from. It's these kids, literally, when I say kids, I'm talking like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. They're shooting at each other. Now, I'm not dismissing that and saying that it's irrelevant and that we shouldn't factor that in. What I'm saying is it's a totally different reason for why it's happening. It's not a gun issue. It's a socioeconomic issue. Because if you take those same kids that look like me, right? I know a lot of black people or people of color who live in the suburbs of America, and they're not running around committing drive-bys in their BMWs. They're not. So what's the difference there? They have access to guns the same way these kids have access to guns, and these kids have access to guns illegally in the inner city. The difference is prolonged exposure to poverty. But nobody wants to have that conversation. And the reason they don't want to have that conversation is because it is admittedly hard to deal with. It's hard. It's convoluted and it's difficult.
So is that the vast majority? So outside of suicide, is that the majority of the shootings?
Yes.
So the majority of the shootings are
inner city gang, drug, and dispute violence. That's what it is.
Okay.
The vast majority of them.
And that is one thing that we both agree on in terms of that's one of the most gigantic and ignored problems in this country is exposure to poverty and violence your whole life.
Yep.
And that these environments like the inner city, like South Side of Chicago, which have never changed. They haven't. They've gotten only worse.
Yep.
I was in Chicago a few years back. We were doing a gig, and there was a cop who was driving us around, and he was explaining what we were like, dude, what is going on? Because it was like right after a big weekend, and he goes, "This is what happened. They got very aggressive with arresting these drug lords." And when they did that, they created a power vacuum, and then these other guys stepped in to try to fill the power vacuum, and a lot of them, these young bucks.
They started clicking up.
Yep.
And so now, I mean, these kids are literally blocks away from each other, shooting at each other. And so from that perspective, I mean, I saw it when I did my little mini docuseries in Southside Chicago. Right?
And how much of an effort has been put? Like, there's almost no coverage of that.
No.
Like in Chicago a couple of weekends ago, I don't remember what the number was, but it was something preposterous amount of people that got shot.
Well, because and I think what it is it's self-contained in many people's minds. It's kind of like that's why people are so engrossed with mass shootings, because with inner city violence, it happens in the inner city. Right. And if you don't live in the inner city, it doesn't affect you, so to speak. So it's easier to kind of push it off and not really pay attention to it. However, with mass shootings, it starts spilling over into your reality, and it's terrifying. Because now it's like, wait, so you mean to tell me I can't just live in a different neighborhood and be away from this type of gun violence? Now I'm dealing with an element that's now shooting me in my area, right? Because I guarantee you, these kids started crossing over and started engaging in the same violence in these other areas, that'd be shut down in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, overnight they shut it down, easily. But in the inner cities, nah, they kind of just let it flourish. And as far as creating the vacuum that it created, you could make the argument, well, they tried to do something about it then, and it just ended up getting worse, right? You have these things that you do, and sometimes it has effect that you didn't intend to have. And so, but the problem is that we always approach it from a singular focus. It's either ban all the guns or just arrest everybody on the streets.
Right.
It's not. We never want to have that in-depth conversation about. You got to think about what type of environment you're living in, where you come up as a child. When I say child, I mean you're 16, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and you so easily can pick up a gun and just take another person's life that looks just like you.
And you get a reputation for doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you don't get arrested.
And you don't.
Well, do you know about the story about the shootout where they released everybody because they said that it was mutual combat?
No.
You don't know that?
No.
Oh, you need to know
Where-
about this.
where
This is
did
in
this happen?
Chicago.
Wait, when?
A few years ago. No, not even a few years ago. I think it was 1 year ago. This is a wild story because 2 people died. I think 2, maybe 3. Multiple people shot.
Yeah.
Shootout on video, by the way. People were filming it from their
How
cars.
the fuck did I miss this?
Dude, it's the craziest shit. That Lori Lightfoot and her administration, boy, they should be examined for future. Like, look who became the mayor of Chicago. This is crazy. When she wears that fucking superhero costume, that lady is out of her fucking mind.
Nuts.
And also when
Not even
she
a good person.
banned protests on her street. Remember that? She banned protests on her. I have to keep myself safe. What about everybody else?
But that's just it.
That's just it.
That's
just it. That's it right
Someone
there.
did get charged, it looks like, but way later and not for.
Well, probably after everybody talked
Yeah,
about
correct.
it.
It says
But
after the drama, there was charges announced.
After mutual combat drama, Fox and Lightfoot announced charges in West Side Shootout. Okay, this is because they dropped the charges initially. So it was over a year ago. So following the drama between Cook County State Attorney Kim Fox and Mayor Lightfoot last year over a lack of charges in a deadly shootout on the West Side, a man was arrested Thursday in connection. Thomas Dean, 20, he's 19 at the time of the shooting, I guess, was charged Thursday with 3 counts of aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. That's not that. Even that aggravated. I was aggravated. Back in October 1, a brazen shootout happened the middle of the day during a quiet afternoon in North Austin. That's a suburb of Chicago, North Austin, Chicago. The shootout allegedly involved 2 gangs and was described like the Wild West due to dozens of shell casings found at the scene. People believe a group of shooters targeted a house. People inside the house fired back, killing one of the gunmen. Following the shooting, I thought more than one person was killed. Following the shooting, CPD said the Cook County State Attorney's Office refused to pursue charges citing mutual combat. Imagine that. On the street. I mean, this isn't even like in the woods. Mayor Lightfoot then I mean, I'm saying like if you know that,
if it was in
well, if it was in the woods, no one can get hit by strays.
bullets, yeah.
This is a fucking crowded street. They're
true.
just firing rounds. The evidence included DNA matched to a gun Dean allegedly used during the shootout. Well, I should have wiped your gun, bro. Fox said more charges may be brought in the future. Whoa, you're fucking threatening more charges? I might say someone else was aggravated. Dean is due in court on Friday. Well, I don't have a lot of faith in this because the way it's going today, and I don't understand what happened in terms of the way DAs just sort of release people that are accused of violent assaults. It's bananas. They just get them out of jail. Like in Los Angeles, it's off the charts. Los Angeles is wild. That video that you sent me of you like talking to the or you playing that interview of the gang member saying he's getting the fuck out of LA.
Yeah.
He's like, it's too hot for me. A fucking gang member is like, LA's too crazy.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. It's I think, yeah, it was WAC 100.
Yes, because he was talking about how the people are getting out.
Yeah.
That they're going to release another 70,000 people early who were violent criminals because they don't have any room in the jails, or the DA just seems to think it's a good idea.
That's another thing, too, that people are not factoring in. After COVID, the bottom fell out. That's what people aren't talking about. Like when you had all these shutdowns and people couldn't work and basically shut down the economy, I mean, you got to understand what that does to a lot of people who are already sitting on the bottom.
Yeah.
So when the bottom falls out, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
You know, people who are already in dire straits are now in desperate straits, and they're doing anything. Right.
Right.
I'm not justifying the action by any stretch of the imagination. I'm
Also,
just saying, don't
they
be surprised.
They don't think there's repercussions anymore.
Yeah, and that's another thing too.
That's
right?
a big thing.
Yeah. And that's it amazes me how people don't understand this. And I think what it is a lot of people just like to live in their own little bubbles, and they don't like to address things until that thing breaks into their bubble. And when it does, it's like, please, government, do something, make it stop right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's too late. It's already there.
Right.
Right. And the government you thought you were going to be able to depend on, yeah, you could depend on them when shit ain't happening.
Yeah.
But when shit starts happening in mass, it's not even always the fact that they don't want to do anything or they just choose not to do it. It's they can't. They can't. There just aren't enough people.
Right.
So at that point, they realize, shit, I'm on my own. And you should have realized that in the middle of the whole situation, because when pretty much the world was shut down, you were on your own. When we were having protests and riots every other day, it seemed like, and another city was burning every other day. And they were like, cops were like, there's not much we can do. You're kind of on your own. That should have sunk right then and there and let you know that the only person responsible for your safety is you. The cops, the government, that's supplemental. You're not supposed to rely on it. You can't rely on it, even if you want to.
The amount of time that it takes them just to respond.
It's just, it's not happening.
Right. If someone's breaking into your house, if someone's on your property, the amount of time that it would take for a police officer to get to you, even if they do choose to respond quickly.
Still not fast enough.
Not fast enough.
There's the popular saying, when seconds count, help is only a minute away.
Yeah.
And that's the whole basis, from at least from me. I'll speak from me. And I know there are a lot of people on the gun side of things that will agree with me. Is
on the gun side
on
of
the
things.
gun, yes, on the gun side of things, which will agree with me is that I have to be self-reliant when it comes to the protection of me, my family, and people that I love.
Yeah.
And that's why I want these firearms. You know, we talk about, and then others talks about banning AR-15s and so forth and so on. And I'm like, no, I want an AR-15 because it is, to me, the best tool to defend myself with. And I don't want the struggle for my life to be a fair fight. I want it to be lopsided in my favor as best as I can.
Yeah.
And the AR does the best job, at least for me. I can speak to my, now, you start getting into the weeds of it. You know, some gun guys will say, oh, no, well, this thing's better. You get some old guys like, oh, you need a shotgun like Joe Biden.
All you need is a
shotgun,
double barrel.
shotgun,
Double
right?
barrel.
Shoot one in the air. Yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
land on your neighbor while he's out mowing the lawn, you fucking idiot.
But I mean, even, and then he'll backdoor and get up on camera and say, well, the 9mm will blow a lung out.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you seen the gunshot wounds of a double barrel shotgun?
Yeah, what the fuck was that about? But we're talking about a literal challenged person.
Yeah.
You know, a person who's got mental issues.
No one's telling the emperor that he has no clothes.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. But like that outside of it, so there's a bunch of issues, right? But the big one is mental health, because this is what accounts for the suicides. And this is what accounts for this person that is willing to go and kill a bunch of innocent people. Yeah. You know, I remember the Aurora shooting, the guy went to the movie theater. They showed a photo of the guy after they arrested him. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I would have arrested him if I saw him at Starbucks. You know, you remember his face? I mean, the guy was clearly ill.
Yeah. I think too, so I read an article, and I've always had this mindset. I always, like, one of my first viral videos was how to stop a mass shooting. Literally. And in the video I was like, stop the fantasy. And by stop the fantasy, I mean have people in place to shut down his ability to kill as many people as possible, because at the end of the day, a lot of these people really are doing it for the clout. They really are.
They're doing it so that they
They
get
can
recognized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, because I mean, think about it. Like the MO is always the same, right? Vast majority of them. And I read an article, and it even kind of blew me away a little bit that there was a study that found like if the media changed the way that they handled reporting these mass shootings, we could reduce mass shootings by 33%. Because
Really?
because a lot of these mass shootings are copycat.
But let me ask you this: you have to record. I mean, there has to be some reporting
Yes.
of a mass shooting.
Yes, and so what it's saying was, focus on the people who were killed, focus on what happened, but we go into a deep sea dive about these people's lives. Like in the video I did it like 5-7 years ago, and I talked about, I'm like, no one can name the vast majority of victims in a lot of these shootings, but you can name all of the shooters. You could name them, you know, if they look at me, we just talked about it. He's like, man, he showed him the face. I was like, oof, wow,
Right,
arresting
right.
them at Starbucks. Like, we know too much about them, and that's exactly what they want. Take the guy in New York. He now gets to sit back. Yeah, he's in jail, but he gets to sit back and watch his work. He's a lunatic. He did a whole manifesto about why he did what he did.
Right.
Now he gets to sit back and watch it.
Right.
Right?
And he gets clout in prison, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I even said that, you know? And I think there's something to be said about that. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say the government should tell the media they can't report on mass shootings. Not what I'm saying. But I do think there's something to be said about how we sensationalize these shooters, right? And you know how I know for a fact? Because when Columbine happened, I was still in high school. And I remember when Columbine happened, I did a deep sea dive into studying both of those dudes. Because it was truly fascinating, because I was like, it never crossed my mind that somebody would do something like that. So I'm trying to get a better understanding about why someone would do that. And so it was easy as hell for me to get all the information in the world. It was plastered all over the news. Now, that was one of the most notorious school shootings that we had. So it's understandable that we were like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, let's figure this out.
It's probably the first, right?
No, it wasn't the first.
Wasn't the first school shooting?
No, I don't think it was the first school shooting. I don't believe so. I think it was the first school shooting to that scale. I mean, you gotta think, these dudes were walking around the school, they're just blasting at people and walking, just killing people in the library. Like, it was nuts.
So there's a lot of things that have to happen. One, we have to figure out what happens to a person. Like, how far gone do they have to be where they can do something like that? And is there a way to stop that?
And I think that's a conversation we need to have. And I think
what could be done, though? Have you ever seen a rational sort of plan for stopping anybody before they get to that point? I mean, I've one of the things that I've heard people talk about is that the FBI was aware of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you do?
Exactly.
Right? Like, let me tell you a story, and I'm trying to be as vague about this as possible because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But there was a kid at a school that someone that I know is connected to, and this kid took a photo and sent it to his friends of him holding a rifle, saying something about gonna go to school. On my way to school now, something to that extent. And that photo got to one of the parents, and one of the parents turned the kid into the police. The police showed up at the kid's house, and apparently he thought it was funny to say, this was a while ago,
Yeah.
it was like there was a break between mass shootings. The kid was only 11, and they said he didn't know what he was doing. He thought it was
funny.
Either funny or he was being wild, and he thought his friends would, he was being a fucking idiot. He's being an 11-year-old who has access to a rifle. And they moved in on him, and they ascertained that he wasn't a threat. But how does that, like, when does one decide that someone is a threat? Like, this guy had not killed anybody until he killed his grandmother and then killed all those kids. So how do you know when a person's about to pop? I mean, do you monitor them? And how many kids you're monitoring? How many kids are bullied to the point where they're suicidal or homicidal? How many people are like that out there?
I think that's the natural restriction of our reality, right? It's because we do have these things in place as far as rights are concerned. But it's like, so at what point? And it's a high standard to remove those rights from somebody, especially when they haven't done anything.
Right.
So that's the question that I think our brain power should be focused on trying to accomplish. While understanding it's no different than a criminal, though, right? See, a criminal becomes a criminal once he does some criminal shit. We don't necessarily know when that's going to happen.
Right.
So what do? We put ourselves in the best position possible to stop that criminal when he decides to try to do it. And that's where we start getting into the conversations about hardening our schools. How do we go about hardening our schools? They had no problem hardening the Capitol with $1.9 billion after what happened on January 6th.
Right.
Right? So they understand on a fundamental level that
they spent $1.9 billion.
From what I read in the article.
I
yes.
would like to see an accounting of all that money.
Just saying.
Because I think that's a little high. If I was the guy running the Capitol, I'd be like, whoa.
What? Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
How much money?
But again, what we're talking about is we're talking about people in positions of leadership who feel that their lives are more important than ours. Right. It's just I'm not gonna say it's just natural, but that tends to happen. You start to kind of develop the sense of superiority when you're in positions of power, and you're like, well, I need the protection because I'm a person of importance. Well, what about everyone else?
Right.
Because a lot of these people are wanting these gun control laws and removing these guns because they don't want the common people to have them because they see them as a threat to them.
Yeah.
Right?
That was one of the arguments about this money that's going to Ukraine, where people were like, how are you sending $40 billion to Ukraine and you're not spending any money protecting schools? Like, imagine, first of all, before we even get into protection, how about advancing education?
Yeah.
$40 billion would go a long way to improving schools. $40 billion would go a long way to providing security in these schools.
Yeah.
You know,
did you hear about how he got in?
No.
So, and I'm not laughing because it's funny, but it's astounding to me. So essentially what happened is he went through a back door that was unlocked. And then he literally went, so they had plans in place to deal with potential mass shooters like this, at least on paper, the protocols that were supposed to be adhered to.
At the school?
Yeah. And he went door to door. He went to several different class doors. They were locked. He couldn't get in. And then there was one door that was ajar. And from what I read, by the time the teacher realized what was going on and she tried to go to the door to lock it, he grabbed the door and opened it. And he was able to get in that way. And so and I've always said this, I'm like, okay, we understand that we don't want these things to happen in our schools. So what's the first thing you do? If somebody broke into your neighbor's house, say tomorrow, the first thing you're probably going to think of is, all right, how do I harden my house to make sure this doesn't happen to me? That's going to be your first thought. Why would we not do that with our children in the places that they go to school? And I know people are like, well, we don't make it seem like they're living in a prison. You can have passive defenses where optically it doesn't look like a prison. You can have reinforced doors that don't look like prison gates. You can do these things, but we don't. And to me, those are the easier things to implement before we even start talking about banning this gun and banning that gun, which will do nothing to stop these things. Because when we talk about school shootings, the worst one we ever had was Virginia Tech. He killed 33 people with handguns. So from that perspective, we understand that there are going to be people who are going to try to do this, whether they use AR-15s, whether they use handguns, shotguns, it doesn't matter. The goal, protect our kids, right? When Obama was in office and his kids were in school, you think this kid would be able to get in there and do what he did?
I do not believe that would be the case. No.
No, he wouldn't be.
No.
Why? Because that school where those kids are going to, it's going to be hardened.
Right.
It's going to be. If Joe Biden had younger kids now and they were in school, that kid would not be able to get into that school.
Right.
He wouldn't, because that school would be hardened.
So, there's so many schools.
There are.
Right. And there's so many guns, and there's so many people, and there's so many potential crazy people.
Yes.
It's like, how much money would it cost to harden all of these schools? You're dealing with a lot of money.
So,
right?
I think there's a school, I forgot the name of the school, I forgot where it was, where they have a whole system in place. It's crazy. I put it in my Evernote because I was going to go and do a video on it, so I hadn't researched it thoroughly. And I think they said it was somewhere in the area of 400,000 for the entire system, but the system scales. Right?
So this is public?
I don't remember if it was public. I think it was,
Private, or all?
what do you mean? For
Schools? Amount of schools?
Well, no, this particular system at this school.
Oh.
This particular school. Yeah. So they had a whole system designed for school shooters.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see what you're saying.
gotcha.
So you're saying that $400,000 was spent
for the system.
for
Yeah, for this particular
That's cool.
system, yeah. And it scales, right? So you can have one aspect of it, make it cheaper and so forth and so on. And I forgot, I didn't do the numbers. How many, Jamie, are you able to pull how many schools we have total?
That's what
in
I
this
was
country?
curious about. Are there any charges that are being brought up against the cops that didn't go in?
Not that I'm aware of.
How do you keep a job? How do you schools and districts? How many schools in the U.S.? There are about 130,930 public and private K through 12 schools in the United States, according to 2017-2018 data.
So expensive.
Yeah.
Super expensive.
Well, yeah, but again, $40 billion goes to Ukraine.
Exactly.
Like
Like
that.
that.
In the middle of an academic downslide.
But
Yeah.
So, I mean, but then again, these are the same people that are always telling us, well, how much is a kid's life worth?
Right.
Right?
So there should be absolutely some measure of protection that stops this from being stops it from being available to someone that someone could just get into the school.
Yes. I think that's bare minimum.
So the fact this guy got in through a back door, and the only reason why he got into that classroom is because the door was ajar.
Sure, yeah.
So protocols have to be in place. But the problem is people get relaxed.
Yes, they do.
After a while.
do.
Like nothing's happening.
Which is why
you're fine.
and I get a lot of shit for it, and I think it's crazy that I get shit for it, but like I'm in favor of allowing teachers to keep guns at school.
Well, some places are now allowing teachers to have guns, and
Yeah.
I watched this video where all these teachers pulled out their pistols, and they
saw
had
that
them.
video.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of world we living in? I want to live in a world where that's not an option because it's not necessary,
Me too.
right? I think you do too.
Yep.
But we also have to live in reality, and all of my liberal friends start screaming about gun control, and then I say, then what? Like, what do you mean? Like, when you talk about the amount of guns, so we got to take those guns. Like, okay,
It's not realistic.
this is not realistic.
It's not.
Not only is it not realistic, it's not smart.
No.
It's I don't want anything like this to ever happen again. We're all on the same page.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's the point that's not being put out there. Because quiet as kept, I'm tired of hearing how all gun owners are the blood of the babies, the kids' hands are on all gun owners who don't want any more gun control laws.
Yeah.
That's fucking ridiculous. Like, we have guns because we want to protect lives. And the only difference is how you want to go about doing it and how we want to go about doing it. It's not like, well, we don't give a damn about those kids. We just want our guns so we can go shoot in the backyard and just be happy and merry. No, we carry guns because we want to protect lives. We just
Yeah.
different in how we want to do it.
Did you see what Trudeau said today?
Wait, today?
Did you see I'll send it to you, Jamie, because it is fucking wild. He said you don't have the right in Canada to own a gun to protect your life. It is one of the most wild things I've ever seen anybody say, because first of all, I don't believe it's true. I don't believe he is correct in terms of what do they have up there? They don't have a constitution. It's not the same. But
yeah, no,
whatever
it's
it
weird.
is.
It's like, I mean, they're still part of England and
Yeah.
UK, all of them over there. Well, they're under the rule of the Queen, theoretically, technically speaking.
Fuck, someone sent it to me, and I don't know if I saved it because I was so disgusted. I think I might have like just fucking threw my hands up in the air. But there's a whole Twitter thread about it that someone had sent to me, and well, I can't find it at the moment. But essentially what he was saying was that is not what's in the whatever they have up there.
Yeah.
That it says you have the right to own a gun for hunting and for shooting sports. You do not have the right to own a gun for self-preservation and to preserve lives. But apparently that's not even true.
Even if it was true, you have to think about what type of leader you're under who can open his mouth and say something like that as his justification for doing what he's doing as far as gun control is concerned.
Well, it's the son of a guy who was a politician and a leader and a completely removed person from terms of regular society and the problems that other people face.
Oh, you mean like Joe Biden?
Yeah. Same thing, basically.
They're the same people.
Both corrupt, both full of shit.
Telling you,
Yeah,
and
same
that's
thing.
and that's a thing that the other side, and when I say the other side, I mean the gun lobby, the anti-gun gun lobby, has done a good job of is creating this.
Here it is. Other than using firearms for sport shooting and hunting, there is no reason anyone in Canada should need guns in their everyday lives. We need less gun violence. This is about freedom. People should be free to go to the super. Okay, but this is not the main thing. The thing that he said that was egregious was he said that they don't have the right to own guns that's not even it either. There's an actual video of it. This is a little bit further longer ago when he was talking about they made a ban on the purchase of handguns, the transfer of handguns, the importing handguns.
So it's funny. So I get a lot of even my legal mentor. This is literally the guy who taught me how to argue, and we go back and forth about this because he thinks I'm too extreme on the issue sometimes. And I think the problem is he doesn't understand that the ultimate goal is for them to ban guns. When I say that out loud, they think I'm crazy. And I'm like, I've been doing this long enough to see where this goes. And look at what's happening in Canada right now. You have someone who is they started off by banning AR-15s, so-called assault weapons. And now all of a sudden, he's talking about people don't have a right to own a handgun.
Yeah.
If right now in our country, people killed with rifles is about 435 every year. 435, close to 500 maybe. More people die from getting beat to death than they do killed with an AR-15. So if the goal is, people's rationale is, well, these school shooters, and I'm being very specific about school shooters because the vast majority of mass shootings are committed with handguns. Mass shootings. School shootings, it trends on the side of AR-15s. So let's say we ban the AR-15s. Then what? Because people are saying that you guys are being ridiculous. We just want to get rid of these scary assault military rifles.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I'm like, that's not just it. Because I know where this is going because I understand the data. That the vast majority of people that are being killed in mass shootings are committed with handguns. It's only a matter of time before we have another one and we're having this conversation again. And now you're telling us we need to ban handguns. And you can't say that I'm crazy because they're doing it right now in Canada. And so that's the problem is people aren't being realistic about this conversation.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the video.
Oh,
I'm sorry. See if you can find it, Jamie. It was people were freaking out reading it or watching it because it was just like it's such a crazy thing to say that you can't have a gun to protect yourself. Like it's that you do not have the right to own a gun to preserve your life.
But this is the mentality. This is the mentality that our leaders have. Not only in Canada. This is a pervasive thought process in the leaders of our country. And this is further exemplified by the fact of how they reacted to the Heller decision. The Heller decision.
What is the Heller?
It's the Supreme Court case that said that you have an individual right to own a firearm. And the leaders of the country literally fought back against it. This is literally the Supreme Court case that says you have an individual right to own a firearm. And they were still upset with that ruling. So this should tell you everything you need to know about what they genuinely want to do. But no one wants to acknowledge that reality. They're like, oh, no, we just want common sense, rational, reasonable, all these other amorphous, euphemistic words. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's not the case at all. It's not. They're looking at it from a position of control. You're looking at it from a position of protecting lives, which is, I agree with you. Let's try to do that. I don't agree with you about how to do it, but I can give you that. At least I know you're coming from a position of, I just want to save lives. I don't really know how to do it. I think getting rid of guns might do it, or banning certain guns might do it. I can respect that. But when it comes to our leaders and the people that are pushing this the most, and my biggest frustration, people are always like, oh, Cole, you're so political, you're so super anti-left wing. No, it just is what it is. The vast majority of gun control comes from the left.
The vast majority.
Vast majority.
Why do you think that is?
Because you mean from the leadership standpoint, or from the people
all the above? I mean, even my left wing friends, the ones that that I know well, that just whenever a mass shooting happens, I look on their Twitter feed, and it's always like "gun control now!" exclamation point.
I put up a tweet not too long ago that kind of got people's panties in a bunch, but I said half of this country wants to be ruled over. The other half of this country just wants to be left alone. The problem is the people who want to be ruled over want everyone to be ruled over. And I, by and large, think that for a lot of people on the left, and I'm not saying everybody because I know a lot of liberal gun owners, right, who are adamant about protecting the Second Amendment. But a vast majority of them really do overly rely on the government as far as keeping them safe and giving them everything that they need. And when you do that, your default is always going to be depend on the government. The government inherently, from the standpoint of utilizing the government to fix all the issues in the country, you get that from the left side of the leadership aisle because they want the government to gain as much power as possible in order to gain control over the people. Whereas when you look on the other side of the aisle,
that's it. Yeah, I just found it too. Here it is.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, play this because this is
we have a culture where the difference is guns can, and we have a culture where the difference is guns can be used for hunting or for sport shooting in Canada, and there's lots of gun owners, and they're mostly respecting and law-abiding. But you can't use a gun for self-protection in Canada. That's not a right that you have in the Constitution or anywhere else. If you try and buy a gun and say it's for self-protection, no, you don't get that. You get it for hunting. You can get it for sport shooting. You can take it to the range, no problem, as long as you go through our rigorous background checks. But there's a difference around the culture. And one of the things that we're seeing with the debate in the States is you get more and more of the American style, right to carry, self-defense arguments filtering up through the usual more right-wing communications channel.
Now, scroll down this thread, because in this thread, it's exposed that that's not the case in terms of their laws. Someone pulls up the actual laws. If you keep going, see what it says here. There it is. Okay. Subsection 12, 6.1, approve the transfer individual needs a restricted firearm gun. Okay, here it goes. December 1, 1998, handguns only if the chief firearms instructor is satisfied. A, that the individual needs the restricted firearm or handgun. I, to protect the life of that individual or of other individuals. And II, for use in connection with his or her lawful profession or occupation of. Or B, that the purpose for which the individual wishes to acquire the restricted firearm or handgun is I, for the use of target practice, target competition. Okay, so A, if you look at A, to protect the life of that individual or other individuals. So this is written in, go back to the top of this, please. So subsection 12, 6.1 in December 1st, 1998, handguns, only if the chief firearms officer is satisfied. So this is it says under this this gentleman, Mr. Ramali, posts this on Twitter. Our prime minister doesn't even know the law. Canadian Firearms Act, Section 28 AI. So it is in their law, which is fucking crazy for a guy to say that.
I'm play devil's advocate. I think that is more geared towards elitism. And here's what I'm getting at. In New York, you can get a concealed carry license.
It's hard.
Why is it hard? Who are they giving it to?
Well, they gave it to a friend of mine who's out of his fucking mind.
So if you're famous,
but he's famous, yeah,
or donating to police chiefs.
When I say out of his fucking mind, I just say it as in jest mostly.
Gotcha.
He's a great guy. But he's a firearms enthusiast, and he's also famous. Mm-hmm. And it took a long ass time for him to get a concealed carry. No. They are handing them out more often now in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles now, yes.
Because of that sheriff. I like that sheriff.
But if you really think about it, that reads just like the New York law, that in terms of being able to carry a firearm for protection. Yeah, technically you can.
But he's saying
it has to be
own. He's not even saying that's not. We're not talking about a license to carry.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking that. See, they don't have a Second Amendment, right? So, the way that read to me, and listening to Trudeau, and then reading that, it's kind of like when it comes to concealed carry license, you have may issue and shall issue states, right? May issue is if you can justify to the sheriff that you need this gun because of your business or your celebrity, somebody who needs to protect their life, right? Then you can get a concealed carry license. But to a regular common person, there's no that's not enough. There has to be an extenuating circumstance, which usually falls on the idea of I'm famous, so I need to protect myself, or I have a jewelry business and I move a lot of cash and therefore I need a gun to protect myself. Well, that takes it even further. And it says, okay, technically, yes, you can own a gun if you can justify to the officer that you have an extenuating circumstance that you need to own that gun to protect your life. And so on its face, I can read it two ways. Yeah, you can justify it to the officer, but to the regular common person, if you're famous, you're a celebrity, or you have a certain business, then sure, they'll give it to you. However, if I'm just a regular person, good luck actually using that to justify it. Because they're going to say you just being a regular person doesn't justify you needing it to protect your life. And that's what he's saying. Regular people don't need firearms to protect their lives. It's special people like him and celebrities and every other elitist who may need these firearms to protect themselves. But regular people, they don't need firearms.
But it doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that, but
But
that's
it just
how
says
that's
to
how they're
protect your life.
that's how they're executing it. That's why he's able to say with a straight face what he's saying.
But he's not even saying it that there's an option if you need to protect your life.
Because he doesn't believe there is one.
Because I think he would rather have the population unarmed. And I think this particularly rings true after the demonstrations that were the trucker demonstrations.
Yeah.
When he demonized all the truckers as being racist and misogynist, like just an open generalizing statement. As a leader, you should be discredited like instantaneously.
Yep.
Like you're not a fucking leader. Like for you to make a generalization on hundreds, if not thousands of people that you don't even know. Like that is so wild, and that you're going to use that to state your point that you don't want these people to be able to protest, which is crazy because it's a giant part of what a civilized democratic society is allowed to do.
But yet here we are in America trying to do what they're doing.
Yes.
That's the thing that baffles me.
Well, I think there's some people that want to do what they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
But there's a giant percentage of our population that's not having it.
Yeah. A huge percentage of it.
A huge.
Right?
And more so that they don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people that I know that got red-pilled over this. Listen, you know, I've had this conversation before. I'm going to say it again. I am a liberal. I am a liberal person. I am very left-wing on almost all issues except gun control. When it comes to the Second Amendment, that's one of the ones
you
where
were one
I'm
of the people
very,
I was talking about.
I'm very right-wing, but I've been very right-wing on that for a long time because I know violent people. I've experienced violence. I understand crime. I just know reality and human beings, and I don't like the idea of being unarmed. I don't agree that it's the safest way, and I don't buy into this nonsense that, you know, like if you live a good life and you're a good person, it's not going to come to you. That's crazy.
No, it's not how the way that's not how the world works.
The world,
for Christ's sakes, we just had
children.
Exactly.
The
most innocent of people on the planet.
Exactly.
And so this
is one of those issues where I have friends that they have this ideological wall, and this wall, they hit the wall where there's no reasonable answer other than take away all the guns.
Well, also part of it too is, and a good friend of mine once said this, and I was like, yeah, you're right. The problem is that a lot of those people only see themselves as possible victims of gun violence, never the defender against it.
Exactly.
And when you can only see yourself as the victim, you have to rely on someone else to protect you, which is why the immediate response is government, take them away. Make all those guns go away.
What's also why the stories where someone does protect people from a mass shooter, like the story that came out just a few days
afterwards,
got no press.
None.
I mean, I saw a little bit of it on some right-wing websites, but for the most part, it was ignored by the mainstream media, particularly by the left-wing media. I didn't see a fucking peep out of it.
And the ones that did, it was just a small article written up back somewhere like 5,000 links down on the page.
Toss it away. But I'm telling you, a lot of my friends that were hardcore lefties got red-pilled over the pandemic when they saw cop cars being lit on fire and houses are being broken into. And when friends got their homes broken into and they called the cops and the cops wouldn't do a damn thing about it. They were like, holy shit. I had so many people call me up asking me how to get a gun. Can I borrow one of their guns? Could they borrow one of my guns, rather?
And you're like, no, can't.
I'm like, that's not how it works, buddy. If you move to Texas, I can give you one, which is pretty wild.
And so getting to that, that's the whole background check thing.
Yeah.
That's that whole thing where, and that's another thing that people don't realize is the way they talk about it, the way the anti-gun lobby talks about background checks, they talk about it as if we don't have background checks in this country.
Right.
We do. You buy a gun from a dealer, you have to get a background check.
Right, but that 18-year-old kid passed a background check,
yeah,
which is crazy.
Because there's no criminal history.
Right, because he's only 18.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the question then remains, so I hear talks about, okay, well, let's include the juvenile records, right? But if the juvenile record doesn't have an offense that's equatable to a felony that prohibits him from owning a firearm, he still would get it.
What did this kid have a juvenile record?
I don't know. I don't think he had anything legally. He's had some weird acts on his part in the past.
Well, wasn't his nickname School Shooter?
Well, I didn't hear that. Was it?
I don't know if it's true, but someone told me that his nickname in high school was School Shooter.
But so then the question remains, it goes, so what do we do? Right?
Find out if that's true.
So how do we do?
Right.
So like we know this. Like this kid's nickname is School Shooter, and so for all intents and purposes, we want to keep guns out of this kid's hands.
Right.
However, the problem is once he turns 18, he's adult. Whether he's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, once he reaches the age where he's legally, constitutionally able to buy a firearm, he has it. The only thing that can preclude him from doing it is if he commits a felony or he's committed because of some mental health issue.
Right.
Right. So he hasn't done anything. We don't live in an age of Minority Report where we can arrest people before they actually commit crimes.
Right.
So we have to understand constitutional rights have to have a certain bit. They're either rights or they're not.
Texas gunman was nicknamed the Yubo School Shooter on a messaging app. Yeah, so he really was. So look at it. He also used to wear wacky clothes.
He was an interesting kid to say.
What is Yubo? Is that another social media app? Should I get on it? Immediately. I'm like, should I?
I mean, I jump on every social.
I get on immediately?
I jump on every social media app.
Are you on all of them?
Yes, no. It's the only way to get the word out as much as possible because it's I'm always dealing with either being shadow banned on this platform for a period of time and then being shadow banned on that platform.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. Like, how shadow banned are you?
It's weird. It ebbs and flows. It's really odd. So I think I'm worse shadow banned on Facebook and Instagram.
Instagram they've hit the brakes on me, baby.
Dude.
I don't even do anything.
Dude,
which is what's crazy.
And what's crazy is the only way I'm able to beat it is because people share my content so much. That's the only thing the algorithm can't fight back against is sharing content. So the fact that I've been able to grow my audience the way that I have, could you imagine if I wasn't shadow banned?
Right, exactly. Well, this is what I was going to bring up. I wanted to look at what it is now. Okay, yeah, I'm now at 9.1 million on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I was at 8.2 when Elon started talking about buying it.
Dude, mine has shot up too on Twitter. It shot up.
They must have removed some of the algorithms that were in place to restrict people.
It's the only explanation.
It's the only explanation.
Yeah, it's just then all of a sudden, go ahead.
I've heard of a few people that I know personally, and I got a few messages of someone saying an alternative thought is that people who were not on the platform, like that Elon bought it, and joined.
900,000 just for me?
It's not that many.
Not that many. Can't be.
You're suggested to a lot of people once they follow one person, to follow these 5 or 10 other people, you know. So
I know, but it's so quick, Jamie, and it immediately happened right after Elon did it. I feel like it might be bots too.
I've had it confirmed from people on the inside.
But he also didn't buy it yet.
On Instagram. Like they've literally found that I was placed in a particular group of people that was designed to blacklist, to basically shadow ban me.
Yeah.
Right. And then as soon as that person was able to remove me out of there, floodgates open. And then somebody else gets, because people forget, these are individuals who are running these things. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not Zuckerberg isn't sitting behind the computer himself saying we're gonna shadow ban Joe, we're gonna shadow ban Colion Noir. No, these are just individuals and who with all types of different ideologies, right? There are people at Facebook who are exceedingly pro-gun.
Yeah.
And then there are people who are exceedingly anti-gun.
There's not a lot of them.
No, there isn't.
They got to keep their fucking mouth shut.
Exactly. And so that's what's happening. So you get these individuals who are inherently anti, and they come across your page, and they're like, fuck that guy.
Well, we wouldn't really have proof of any of this if it wasn't for Project Veritas.
Truth be told.
Project Veritas, and I know a lot of people don't like the way they do business, but that is the only way to get that kind of information.
Dudes be talking too much on their dates.
That's what's hilarious. It's kind of a brilliant move. You get these single guys, you put tits in front of them,
yep.
You get a hot lady in front of them, or a hot guy.
God forbid they start drinking too. They start running.
Yeah, some of them must be hot guys because a few of those.
Oh yeah, because they're
a few of those fellas. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be prejudiced, but I think
They're a little zesty.
They're a little zesty.
They're a little zesty.
They might be. They might have rainbow underwear. There's a thing that they do though, where they get these people comfortable, and then they somehow or another get them talking about their business, and they start talking about how they're essentially communists, about how they ban all these right-wing people or shadow ban them, where they limit the reach of their tweets.
And these are the people making a decision.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's coming from the top down.
Yeah.
These people are making those decisions unilaterally on their own.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. And so I've dealt with it countless occasions. The only reason why my account one day, it's like floodgates open, I'm getting 100 follows almost every hour versus what the hell? How am I losing followers at this point?
Right.
So it's interesting.
But the
how that
losing
works.
thing, I always assume that they must be cleaning up bots.
That-
But I'm a little, I'm not sure about that anymore.
I'll show you mine.
Because,
Sorry to cut you off. I have thousands of people that follow me and unfollow me every single day. That my number stays the exact same.
oh yeah, well that's normal.
I used
That's normal because people just unfollow you and follow you.
yeah.
But I'm talking about like big numbers, and I'm also talking about, you could say that people decided because Elon was going to buy the platform that this. But
not
here's
in mass like that.
right, and also it's disproportionately affecting people on the right.
It really is,
even
yeah.
though I'm not on the right.
But then
But I get lumped in that. I get lumped in that because I'm a cage fighting commentator and a hunter and all that other stuff.
the problem though too is people who lean more left were losing a ton of followers also.
Well, and this is what I was going to say, people who lean more left lost followers when Elon started talking about buying it.
But to the extent that they were losing them,
Right.
I mean they were losing them in droves. Not that many people jumped off Twitter simply because Elon was talking about buying it, even
Are
though
we
they
sure
lean left.
though? Because like Vox had an article like how to bail. There's a lot of people that decided, which is really wild.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back to 2015, Elon was the left-wing superhero.
Yeah.
People are so goddamn fickle.
Fickle, man.
They're so crazy.
Fickle.
They all of a sudden they're deciding that he's and now he said he's voting Republican. And bah! They came for him. He got massaged and
And
tried to get jerked off. I mean,
I
it's
actually
just
tweeted
wild.
him. I actually tweeted him because he made a statement. Somebody asked him about AR-15s. And he
What did
stated
he say?
he stated something. He's like, I think that there should be like an extensive evaluation for people who own AR-15s or like mental health or some mental health evaluation and so forth and so on. And so what I said to him when I was like, here's the problem with that. One, it's a constitutional right. And I was like, and two, understand who's going to be in charge of making those decisions.
That's the problem.
I was like, right now you are trying to protect the first on a platform and they're trying to destroy you for it. So imagine what they would try to do to somebody like me, who is a Second Amendment advocate, and I say I want to be able to own a certain gun, and I have to go through these extensive evaluations. So it's no different than than the write-up than the law we just saw in Canada, where like the officer has to approve that it's for life-saving purposes.
Well, the problem with saying that people are trying to destroy him is that there's a thing that happens whenever there's conflict, whenever there's any kind of conflict.
Yeah.
And when you have a guy who is one of the richest men, if not the richest man on earth, and he does anything, there's going to be people mad.
Which is true.
They're going to be angry.
That's very
And
true.
when you're dealing at scale with, like, what are the numbers of people that are on Twitter? Let's take a guess. Let's take a guess. What do you think the number of people on Twitter is? How many people are, like, active on Twitter?
Active
Active.
that are not bots.
Let's just, I mean, we don't really know what that
Yeah.
is. Because he thinks the bots might be really high.
Because they said 5%, but
He
that
thinks
was
it might
up.
be 40.
Yeah, I agree.
Really? Mm-hmm. I think so. Sometimes I go into, like, I don't post much on Twitter because it's so toxic.
Shit,
but examine it. I examine it sometimes for just not my own post, but other people's posts, just to see like what discourse is like that post about Trudeau.
Yeah.
And I go into it, and then I see some posts. I'm like, what is this person saying? Click on their profile.
Nothing.
0 followers, and it's all like weird, random
yeah.
political stuff. And I'm like,
I mean,
oh, this is
think
not
about,
a real human.
I don't know if you get it in your comment section, because usually I see your post and I'll either like or just go comment and be out. But are you getting a lot of bots in your Instagram comments?
Dude, do I get bots? I will post something and within
seconds.
Okay, let's do it right now. We'll do it live because we'll do it live where no one will know that we're doing it. So look at me. I'm going to do it with you. Smile. Bam. Okay, perfect. There's you. I'm going to immortalize you. You happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
I'm so used to dealing with women. Is this a good picture?
I'm like, I don't care.
I don't know. Will you put it through a filter? Damn, you look jacked in this picture. All right, so I'm going to post this on Instagram. Well, Instagram is the real one for bots. That's where I get the bots. Okay. Fun times talking gun control. Times talking gun control with my friend Colion. Here we go. Bam. Okay. So, right now,
All right, let me see.
I'm going to put it up there
Right.
right this very second. Ready, set, go. Share. And now I'm going to look and we're going to check it out. Bam. Okay. No comments yet. Now.
They unfollow me from you.
What?
Oh, never mind. That's my other page.
They already have 7 comments.
I already have 7
They're all
comments.
bots.
They're all
Oh,
bots.
you fucking, that's
Yeah.
fucking
They're
nuts.
on
But
the
it's
screen.
way more now. Look at it. Look at this. Look at all the comments. These are all bots. Look at it. Just look at that. Why does everyone always judge me after see my stories? But look at the language too. Why everyone always judge me after see my stories? That bitch is Russian. That's not a. That's a man. Look at that one. Look at their booty. How
That's all
long?
it is. It's just asses.
Can you go make it so we could read the whole thing, please? How long and strong you make duration with me? Why everyone always judge me after see my stories? Me or your girlfriend? It's all butts.
I think
Need help.
I think women with BBLs just are naturally attracted to you.
What is
And therefore,
BBL? Brazilian butt lifts?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that makes me sad that people are getting operations. I was telling you that I look at this. Wow. Why everyone? It's all.
I mean, you
bots.
did post me, so the wow kind of makes sense with the hard eyes.
Look
I
at
mean,
your
you
arm.
just,
You look jacked, dude. Look at those guns.
I've been trying. I've been in the gym,
Look
bro.
at the guns. What's your look at favorite style? Jesus Christ, how bad is the English of these bots? There's no greater joy. What does that say?
They're having
And then
financial freedom,
Yeah. Bot. Is he still simping for the NRA? Oh,
See, that's a real person.
That's a real person.
That's a real person.
That's a guy with a little dick, I bet. Thanks. Thanks for coming to my rescue when I needed someone to help me out. Yeah. And quickest draw in the West. Oh, that's you. That's
yeah,
real.
I'll take
That's
it.
real.
I'll take it.
I'll take that too. My mother said I'm too pretty to be ignored. Is that true?
This is within 48 seconds.
Joy of the heart. Just received my profile. I can now clear up all my debt and start my own business. I'm paying $5,000 to 7 people. Ivanka admitted there was no voter fraud. What is that? Is that real?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's more fake too. It's like it's all bots.
Yep.
It's literally 99% bots.
Nuts. And then if you go, none of them are following you.
No?
No.
So how do they
I checked
get it?
Because I'm like, what's going on? So I was like, man, let me go see if they're following me. They're
Okay,
not
I'm gonna
following
check
me.
on this right now. Check this one. Not following me. 22 plus model. She's 20. She's 22. I think she likes you, dude.
I think she likes me too.
Jesus. I don't know, is that even a human? You don't even know. It could be artificial generated, you know? They're generating people now. Generate that, son. Boom. It's kind of crazy. But here's my question. What are they getting out of that?
I don't know. I mean, people fall for it though.
But what do they
So-
do?
so
do
actually
they
it
click on the
happens.
profile? Let's click on the
It's a
profile.
numbers game.
Right.
That's it. It's just-
right, but what is like if they get a hit, like what do they get?
You can fall into a trap to
Yeah.
give someone gift
Start
cards and that
this-
bullshit.
Okay, let's go on one of them.
I'm not. Wait.
No? Well, I can't.
I can't compromise my account.
Oh, shit. I see. I
So
understand.
it happens on YouTube too. So I'm having somebody's. So what they'll do is they'll take a thumbnail of me,
Yeah.
and then they'll comment in all my videos, and then tell them call this number, and they're thinking it's me. Call this number, and you've won this free prize or something like that. And so I got to get on there. I'm like, I make videos. I'm like, look, that's not me. Stop doing that. And then they'll like send information, or in some cases send money. Like I got it really bad at one point on Facebook. Facebook's done a better job of nipping that in the bud, where literally people were getting scammed out of money thinking it was me. Yeah, and then I'm like, no, that's not me. And then people getting mad at me, like, where the hell's my stuff? And I'm like, yo, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I've
Like,
given up on trying to stop all the
it's-
fucking fake me's.
Yeah.
There's the weird industry that has emerged of like scamming people online, and it's really kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
How when you're saying it's a numbers game, I wonder how many people.
But as you're saying that online, I go, didn't they just used to do it by the mail before? It
Yeah,
just took
it's
a little
just
bit longer.
just transcended over online.
But I think it's way more lucrative
buying
now,
sea
right?
monkeys, you know?
What do
Because
think
you have access to such an enormous amount of people in a short period of time versus like
Yeah.
Jamie was saying with mail, it just takes a lot longer.
Why not bring in another viewpoint? Someone says. Shut up. This is one of the rare times where I read comments. I want to go to one of these bots. Okay, I'm going to go to this bot. So it says, oh, this is different. This is a cartoon maker. See, I think there's a lot of those that are fake too.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of those that are like basically the same thing. They say, I make cartoons. I make
clicked
an
on
image of
one,
you.
for instance.
Oh, that's a real dude.
But
isn't
no,
it?
it's not. No, it's not.
No,
It's not?
No.
What they'll also do is then
How do you know it's not a real guy?
It's not.
It's not.
What a lot of them will do they'll get access to someone's account on Facebook, take all of their data, use their pictures to then create a fake account that looks like a real person, talks like a real person, knows things about that. And
The ones that like don't even let you follow them are fascinating.
Oh.
You know, like you have to follow them in order to.
Oh,
this
in order
account
to
is
see. Yeah.
private.
Yeah.
Oh, this account is private.
Yeah.
like, look, that looks like a real girl, right?
There's another one that's private.
Her original account was
She's
deleted at
real.
60K.
Shut
No,
the fuck
no,
up.
she's
That's a
not
real
real.
girl.
No,
Stop. She's my friend. Don't be an asshole.
That's not how.
Can you imagine being a sad,
And then they'll say something like
sad
deleted at 60K to justify why their
Yeah,
followers
but
are
there's
so low.
a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old that hasn't been online that long, that doesn't know these games, and they'll fall for it one night.
Okay, I want to click on this link, but I don't. It says adults only. Hottie. Adult performer, musician.
You might not want to click on that.
I do, though. I don't, but I do. Like, I want to know
So
what the
if you-
scam
if you-
is.
Let me click on that one. We'll see. It's going to take to another
the
more
links.
links, though, I bet.
Yeah.
Do you have some sort of a block? Oh, my God, that's her butt for real?
So, like this.
This is a real girl, Jamie.
it's
you
a
should
real girl.
apologize to her. That's a real. That might be a boy.
It really
By the way, today they do
definitely
a
not
great
clicking on
job on those fake butts that they put on biological males.
Yeah.
So if you click on things, do you have like some protection?
On this one, no. That's why I'm not clicking
Yeah,
that.
don't.
But that's the game.
So they get you to click on that, and then is like an OnlyFans type deal, or is
At
it
the end of the
something
day,
else?
it could be getting
could
a
be
track,
something,
like the way
yeah.
trackers you set up on your computer. They get a
Right.
keylogger on there. They'll find your information, or they're just trying to trick you into putting it in somewhere.
Yeah.
Or trying to trick you into an OnlyFans account, like if you do like sign up for an OnlyFans account, even if you're a sucker and you go, oh, this is bullshit. And you
Well,
pay.
I think in those cases, those girls are kind of real because what they're
Some of
doing
them.
is, because what they want to do is get, they actually want people to sign up for their
Right.
OnlyFans, right?
Right, but-
and you have to have the content there to actually keep them there.
But don't they steal content from someone else's OnlyFans?
You know what?
They
that
also
is
pay
true,
for
yeah.
people to engage.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about that.
I do. I heard about that.
Yeah.
I was watching an interview where
What happened?
these girls hire men to write to other men with their photos. So like they'll have a manager, and the manager will handle like all these
this-
different women.
Gotcha.
And then they
So-
sign up for OnlyFans, and they give them a piece of it. They're like, "Look, I'll take X%. You take the rest. Well, I'll write all these things, and we'll hire people that engage with these guys all
and they're
day
thinking
long."
and they're thinking they're engaging.
Yeah. And so they think they have they're having like a text buddy relationship with these girls, and they're sending them heart face emojis and clasping hands and the whole deal, and they think they're in love.
And that OnlyFans stuff is interesting, man. That's some nutty
It's
shit
wild
to me,
because
man.
there's so many sad guys out there, man. There's so many sad dudes that like that alone is like the to be able to interact with a woman like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's just the reality of the dating market now.
I mean, how so?
Social media, it's different. Like girls have access to men they otherwise never had access to before. So you're getting this cluster effect of they're only going to go after the guys they absolutely want. Where before you had it where you only dealt with the people in your environment.
Right, at a club or
Yeah.
wherever you went.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
you had to
so-
meet people
Yeah.
in real life.
Because before it's like say for instance, let's say Michael B. Jordan, right? If a girl was really into Michael B. Jordan before, the only way she could possibly get his attention is to what? Maybe happen to run into him somewhere.
And
the
she'd have to be
likelihood
a
of it-
full psycho.
Exactly.
Full psycho to leave the house.
Sagar posted this yesterday where people met online, the couples. I don't know how long they were dating in this case, but as of 2020, it's like the most people meet online.
Yeah.
Well,
according to every other.
well,
place
how
you
the
could
fuck
meet.
was anybody meeting online in 1940? What does that mean?
Well, comparatively.
Okay, so met online. So in the olden days, back in the day, they met through friends, right? Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, like that was
Most
the most
people
popular.
met through friends, or they met in a bar or a restaurant, or yeah. And now most people meet online. Wow, look at the numbers.
Yeah.
It is a rocket ship
Told you.
towards meeting online.
Family set it up. That was before 1940. That was the highest. It's like
Wow.
rearranged marriages, or I've got a niece or a son.
Exactly,
just marry.
yeah.
Look at all the people that used to
Church.
They meet through church, or they meet as coworkers. A lot of fucking going on in that office. Back before
Work
they put the
husbands,
kibosh.
work wives.
Look at, like, once people started getting in trouble for that, look at the drop in people meeting as coworkers. Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
like the 2010 to 2020. Look at that. 2010 to 2020
you're
drop
right.
off. It's a crazy drop off. They're like too risky. Yeah, wild.
Oh, shit where you eat.
But what's interesting is, though, the guys are still vulnerable to that.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
they're not trying, but if a girl still tries, we're dumb. Guys are dumb.
Oh, we dumb?
Oh, so dumb. That used to be like a move where a girl would, like, get a job as a secretary to meet a guy who's an executive.
I mean, girls did it in college. Like, girls, like, what do you get? What are you studying? I'm studying my MRS. Like,
What's MRS?
My missus.
Oh. They used to say that?
Yeah.
There's
girls used to
a girl who's kind of famous on YouTube because she talks openly about submitting to her husband. Have you know this girl?
I think I know who you're talking about.
And she talks about how, people submit to their boss.
Yeah.
All the time.
But they don't submit to their.
Yeah, and that, we have a great relationship and we cooperate together, and I'm essentially a professional wife.
I mean, feminism has turned the word submission into a bad word. I mean, this is what it is.
I mean, it's like, who are you submitting to? Are you submitting to someone who loves you and cares for you and is looking out for you genuinely, or are you submitting to some guy who's an asshole who just has money? And
there's that too. I think that's why I've always said it too. Like, anytime I deal with anyone, I only ask you two things: is loyalty and respect. I don't need your love.
What? You don't need love from a girl?
Loyalty and respect.
Dude, you're a rapper.
No, I'm being dead
Basically a
serious.
rapper.
Because think about it like this.
You're a gangster. That's such a gangster thing to say.
There are things people won't do because they respect you.
Okay.
There are things people will do even if they love you. It's different. I'm not saying I don't want love at all. I'm just saying I prioritize that loyalty and respect.
Well, what's your standard for love? Like, there's some people that think of love like they right away love people. And then there's people that, like, you got to really, really earn the word love.
That's how I am.
I think in most cases that's true, but if I'm drunk.
I think that's a different L word.
I love everybody if I'm drunk.
Yeah. It's funny. I think I do a pretty good job monitoring myself when I'm drunk.
Yeah. The problem with, like, drunk is, like, then you sober up.
Yeah.
If you could just maintain, imagine if there, imagine if there was a drug that you could take that had no side effects, that just kept you buzzed all day long.
No, I've gotten my drinking to a science on that level.
Really?
Yep.
How do you do it?
I just know how my body reacts. Because you know how me. I'm like, I won't smoke weed. I won't do anything, right?
Right.
Except alcohol, which is probably the worst, but whatever.
It is.
It
is.
But I think what it is I hit a certain level where I don't like the feeling. And so I don't like feeling shit-faced. So for me, I'll hit a point where I'm floating, right? And once I'm there, I'll stop.
Maintain.
I'll shut it off.
Yeah.
I won't drink anymore.
Are you aware of glutathione?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, liposomal glutathione.
I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I think we did. But for people that didn't hear that, it has a really significant effect on your body's ability to process alcohol. I mean, it's not, I think it's been exaggerated by some people, but there's a real legitimate effect, documented effect that liposomal glutathione has on your body's ability to process alcohol. And there's a lot of people that take glutathione when they're drinking to manage your body's processing.
I don't remember the last time I had a hangover.
Really?
Yeah. I told you, I have it down to a science. A lot of it, too, is when especially like when I come to Austin, because I do actually most of my partying in Austin.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
This is where you get hammered?
Yeah, pretty much.
Why?
Sunday fun days, man. Sunday fun days, man.
But why up here? Why do you come up here to get drunk?
I just like the energy here. I just love the energy here.
It is a fun town.
It is very fun, very fun. And so for me, but I'm always like, when I'm drinking like that, especially during the day, you'll notice, and some of my friends get annoyed with me because they're like, shots. I'm like, no.
Really?
Because I'll shut it down because I know when I hit my point.
Right.
So, and then at that point, they'll give me a shot and I'm drinking water.
Well, you're a good person to talk about gun control with then, because you're like a controlled guy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's control.
Yeah.
Like that kind of control and awareness of
Yeah.
like limitations and being smart about things and seeing where things go bad.
I think also too, there's a component where I know there are a lot of eyes on me as well too. Not that I honestly, but that's not even. You talk to my friends who knew me before I kind of developed this platform. I was always kind of that way too. And so, but I'm very cognizant and aware that like I can be out and people know me and I don't realize that they know me.
There's a limited amount of people in that space, in the gun control space, that have not just a voice, but also an intelligent perspective and can have these really reasonable, even-keeled debates and discussions of things.
Or maybe I'm an idiot because I know I got a lot of friends who are in the gun space who are like, man, I can't do what you do because I don't want to deal with it.
Well, I don't think you're an idiot. I think you just are better at handling that kind of shit than a lot of people are.
Yeah, maybe
But
to my detriment.
Do you have conversations with people? Do you ever have debates with people that are like that think that we should take away all the AR-15s and think that we?
It's funny you bring that up. Before I came here, I went to the hotel restaurant that I was staying at, and there was a bartender. She was there who was taking my order, and so she was looking at my shirt, and she's like, "If you know, you know." Because that's what the I, the K, the Y, and all that stuff stands for.
What does it say? If you know,
if you know, you know. That's what the acronym IKYK stands for.
what does it say?
On the inside, it's the actual verbiage of the Second Amendment.
Oh,
Yeah. And so the whole basis of the shirt is
a well-regulated militia.
being necessary to the security of a free state. Right, the people that keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Is this your T-shirt?
Yeah, it's my T-shirt.
Oh, from your company?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the point. So all of my designs, all of my T-shirts and
Is
merch.
that a Glock hat? What is that?
No, this is
What
this is my logo.
Oh,
CN.
it looks like.
Colion Noir. Yeah.
It looks similar to the Glock logo.
Nah, they stole it from me.
Did they?
No.
How dare you? You got me for a second.
No. But my designs are designed to kind of evoke curiosity, to have the conversation. And so literally I'm sitting at the bar and she's like, if you know, you know. And I'm like, oh, I'm surprised you picked up on that. And then she was like, well, what does it say on the inside? And so she reads it and she's like, oh, the Second Amendment. And so I was like, yeah. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm in Austin. I'm like, I'm not sure how this is going to go.
This could go either way. This could go fuck yeah. She can give you knuckles, or she can call you a piece of shit.
Yeah. So it actually fell in the middle.
Really?
Yeah. So we actually we conversed for about 30, 40 minutes. I sat there stuffing my face while we sat and we talked because they just opened, so it was pretty slow. And she was like, I just think there needs to be some laws. And I'm like, well, there are laws. It's not like we're starting from zero. We
Right.
have like 300 federal gun laws and then close to 20,000 on the state and local level. And so she's like, yeah, but what about background checks? We need background checks. I'm like, we have background checks. And oddly enough, like in that moment when she said background checks, I knew she didn't know that we already have them. But I didn't want this to turn into an argument. I wanted it to be a conversation. So I was like, how do I retort that without making it seem like I'm being combative? And so I'm like, well, so I softly, I'm like, well, we do have background checks. Anytime you buy a gun, from a dealer, you have to get a background check. She's like, but do you really? I'm like, yeah, you do. And so the conversation went from there. We didn't fix the world's problems in that conversation, but we had an open enough conversation where I could tell she was more open-minded about certain aspects of stuff and realized some of the things she didn't know. While at the same time, I let her speak to me in a way where I got a better understanding of where someone like her is coming from on the issue so that we can have that conversation in a productive manner. It wasn't from the position of, you want to ban guns, I don't want you to take mine, it's my right. And it wasn't that. It was, okay, but here's the reality, here are the facts, and then this is where your stance on it is. And that's my ultimate goal for what I do, especially with my videos. Like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen a comment sometimes. People was like, well, stop making these videos. Not stop making the videos, but there's like, this is pointless, Colion, because they're never going to change their mind. And I'm like, this video isn't for the extreme. It's not in a lot of times for the people who are extremely in agreement with me. It's for the people in the middle.
There's a lot of people in the middle.
Like a ton. And they're really honestly just looking for adequate information to make the decision on.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to give them when I put my videos out. So that's who I'm speaking to. Now, sometimes I get a little fruitful.
Fruitful?
Fruitful.
Fruitful.
When it comes to like some, like, not zesty fruitful, but
Zesty. I like how you're using zesty. It is Pride Month. Zesty's a good one. Zesty's positive. It's a positive expression.
I think it's an awesome term.
It's a great term.
Yeah.
It's a great term.
But, it's for me, like sometimes with certain celebrities, I'll get a little fruitful in the way I kind of handle the video. But for the most part, I'm trying to educate the masses of people in the middle who are looking to get information, because a lot of them either get straight up lies that is being pushed by the anti-gun lobby, or they're just ignorant on all the laws, the gun conversation altogether. Because this has been the biggest conversation this is as big as the conversation has ever gotten with respect to the gun conversation in America. And a lot of it has to do with social media. If social media did not exist to the degree that it does right now, the state of gun rights in this country would be nil.
You think so?
I absolutely agree.
So you think that social media has actually accentuated gun rights?
Absolutely. Until they realized how powerful it was, and then we started getting shadow banned. Because what happens is, because before, most of the information was coming from the mainstream media. That's where all the conversations were being had. CNN isn't running to get Colion Noir to come onto the platform. Now, in all fairness, I will say this. Recently, I think CNN did a piece on AR-15s. And somebody from CNN reached out to me and wanted me to be a part of it. I was traveling. I couldn't do it. But even then, I was a little kind of hesitant.
I think that subject is too multifaceted and complex to be handled in a 5-minute segment.
I agree.
Especially there would be you, and then there'd be someone on the other side that is the anti-gun
Funny thing,
person.
it wasn't even like a conversation type piece. It was one of those kind of like investigative kind
so they
of
wanted
deals.
to interview you and then edit you out of context and take the worst shit that you say.
Exactly. And that's why typically I only like to do things live. If
Yeah.
I'm going to do anything from a opposition standpoint, and I don't mean I'm calling people who disagree with me the ops, but
I know what you're saying.
yeah, I like to do it live. So that there's no misconstruing of what I'm saying or what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah.
I'm not too prone to doing pre-recorded with them because I know how things can be taken out of context. They've done it to me for years without me even being part of their program. They've taken what I've said and then just kind of completely taken out of context purposely. And so I'm a little hesitant to do pre-recorded stuff, even though sometimes my arrogance will want to. Because I've been doing this for so long, I think, oh no, I can navigate all the tricks and stuff, and I had to pull myself back because I'm like, there are people who are way more experienced at this, and they still get caught up in that. So I'm not going to be so arrogant as to assume I can navigate the pitfalls that come with doing something pre-recorded with people who are legitimately trying to trip you up.
I've
and
seen
edit you a
people
certain way.
take answers to a different question and apply them to a question that makes that answer look horrible. I've seen people do that. I've seen that on television, on regular television, where I know. In fact, I've seen the original video. Yeah, it's horrible.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Nothing you can do about it. And those kind of deceptive practices have always been a part of the media.
Yeah.
I have an opinion that I've been developing more and more lately that I feel like almost like news should be nonprofit. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But I feel like there should be a rigorous examination of the objective facts, what we absolutely understand, almost by like a third party that's completely unbiased and that's regulated. And then you shouldn't do that either, because like then you have right-wing politics versus left-wing politics.
They've done it to me.
Right.
I remember when we remember the Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Right? Kyle Rittenhouse. I remember when I did the Kyle Rittenhouse. Actually, that's a different situation. That was Facebook banning me for just doing a legal breakdown of the actual situation.
They banned you?
Yes.
Facebook banned you for doing a
temporarily.
breakdown?
Yes.
What did they say?
Banned the video, and then they said, because remember, and that's when Zuckerberg got up in there and was basically like, we're treating him like a mass shooter.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they immediately banned the video, and then they were like, yeah, we're banning your account temporarily because you posted a video about Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, I also did another video where I said, I think it was about background checks, right? And I said 90% of Americans do not agree with universal background checks because most people don't understand the distinction.
What does that mean?
So universal background checks. So there's background checks, and then they've coined this term universal background checks, or what else do they call it? Extended background checks, right? So when they talk background checks, they're talking about universal or extended background checks, which is they want to require background checks for private transfers. So for instance, like if I came here now and wanted to give you a gun here in Texas, they want it to be federally required that you and I would have to go to a gun store, you get a background check before I can give you the gun. we have background checks. Like if you were to go to a gun store and buy a gun, yeah, you have to get a background check. You go to a gun show, get a gun, you got to get a background check.
But what is the loophole for gun shows that people always talk about?
It's not a loophole. It's what we're talking about right now. It's private. So if you and I said, hey, I was like, hey, I have this gun. You want to buy it? And you're like, yeah. All right, where do you want to meet? All right, meet me at this gun show. And then we exchange it there.
But if a person sells a gun at a gun show at a stand.
At a stand, yes, they are a dealer. Therefore, you need to run a background check on everybody who buys the gun there.
But if someone bought a gun legally at a stand and then brought it to you and said, you want to buy it? They could just sell it to you.
They could technically sell it to you.
Because they're an individual.
However, they will run into the straw purchase aspect of the law. Because then what that does is that gives you constructive intent to say, hey, look, this person bought this gun to sell it to somebody else. That is a straw purchase.
Now, is that universal in terms of all 50 states?
No. So some states you can't have private transactions.
Oh, what states are those?
I don't know all of them. But they're like, first, California, New York, Connecticut, what else? I can't remember all the ones.
New York makes it very difficult to get a handgun. Is that correct?
Yes. Like
California, you can get a handgun pretty easy. You just can't carry.
You can't carry. I mean, they're loosening up some of the restrictions as far as the carries, like you talked about, like handing out permits in some places. LA County is a different story. But I think some people are. I think they were even loosening up.
They're loosening up in LA County.
They have no choice, though, because LA's turning into the fucking purge.
Yeah.
But
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are some states where you're allowed to have private transactions without requiring a background check. And then there are some states where you can't do that. That's universal background check.
Yeah.
That are extended background checks. That's what we're talking about. The funny thing about it is most of these mass shooters not getting their guns through private transactions. They're getting background checks and then acquiring the firearms. That's the weird thing about it. But a lot of people think that we just don't have background checks at all.
Or they're getting them from somebody else who got them from illegal means.
Exactly. Right?
Like one of the guys got it from his parents, right?
Yes, exactly. He stole it. Like the Adam Lant. I don't want to say his name. Fuck. I make it a point not to say their names. But yes, he stole it from his mother.
Right.
Right. And so for a lot of people, they see that and they go, well, like, yeah, we need background check. Well, we have them. And then when we talk about private transactions, I have a problem with requiring background checks on private transfers because I know what it takes for them to be effective. You cannot enforce a universal background check, basically requiring you and I have to go and get a background check before I can give you a gun. You can't enforce that unless there is a national gun registration. There has to be a registry with all of the guns in place that the government has, with all the information, location, and everything, in order for them to effectively enforce that. Because if I pull a gun out of my bag right now and hand you a gun, right, and I say, this is yours, you can keep it, it's a gift from me to you, and then you go about your life and the cop pulls you over and says, hey, did you get a background check for that gun? Yeah, I did. How would they know you're lying? Unless they have a database of every transaction that took place with every firearm that they can go and say, well, this particular gun belongs to Colion Noir.
But is it unreasonable to have that?
What do you mean? Yes.
It is unreasonable.
I do absolutely believe it's unreasonable.
Why do you think it's unreasonable to have?
Because every registration that this country, this world has ever had has resulted in the confiscation. Australia, they had a registration. Then they subsequently used that registration to confiscate firearms. And they don't even have to go door to door to do it. That's what people don't realize. All they have to say is, you don't turn that gun in, we're going to come arrest you.
They would have to literally arrest almost everybody. Unless everybody complied.
Exactly. But see, here's the thing, though. Do you want to be the person they make an example out of? So think about it. All they would have to do is this.
Make an example out of a few people, high-profile people.
They'll come to my black ass in a heartbeat. Colion Noir, you didn't turn your guns in. Yes, yes, I did. No, we have the registration. We have all your guns right here. None of these guns were turned in. We're taking you in. I'm in fucking prison because I didn't turn in my firearms. Now everybody else who's not me is looking at like, damn. It's kind of like, remember Napster? When they were like charging certain people with stealing music.
Oh, I do remember they did that. That's right.
It's the same concept.
Some people went to jail for that.
Exactly,
right?
and it scared me. I stopped downloading on Napster. I'm like, I don't want y'all coming over here in my college dorm room arresting me because I'm fucking downloading.
Well, I stopped downloading because I'm a good person.
Shut up, Joe.
I didn't stop downloading. I did make a point of buying CDs if I liked the music that I downloaded for free. but it's
Fair
like,
enough.
But
Fair
that's
enough.
kind
It's
of
kind
rude.
of
It's kind of rude.
You're just kind of making yourself feel
Yeah,
better.
exactly. I'm a piece of shit. That was a piece of shit move. But that was one of those things where no one knew, is this stealing? Is it not stealing?
It's weird.
You know?
It's kind of like, I mean, I really honestly, I love music so much that I didn't even want to let my brain go there because I know that
Right.
I probably wouldn't be able to justify it.
What they have done is pretty fascinating, though. Like with subscription services like Spotify and
I
Apple
love it.
Music.
I
and
love it.
I love that I can, like, you can tell me about a song and I could just go, oh, okay,
boom.
bam, and then I get it, and it's on my phone, like instantaneously. I'll
It's-
pay a little money for that.
I have
Yeah.
Spotify, I have Apple, I have other streamings like
Jay-Z's.
I had Tidal for a while.
Is that good?
Yeah, I didn't like the interface that much.
What's
And-
the best one?
I'm still a Spotify user, largely, and I think it's
You
largely.
don't have to say that because you're here.
Huh?
You don't have to say that because you're here.
No, I'm being dead serious. I forgot you were on Spotify.
Me
Just
too.
Truth be told. But I started using them initially.
Right.
Right. And I love the interface. And so I just got entrenched in it. It's like me and Apple. Like my whole ecosystem is Apple now.
Right.
So I don't have a desire to go anywhere else. And everything else works just fine for me.
I wish Apple came up with a keyboard that's worth a fuck.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that. You like the long throw.
Well, I'm
I don't
a writer. I write.
I like the short throw. I can go faster.
No.
I remember you telling me.
No,
like,
you don't go faster. You never used a ThinkPad.
No, granted, I do
They're
most
the
of them.
best. ThinkPads have a curved keyboard. Like,
Are you
I'll
talking about
tell you
the-
what.
has
Even
that- the,
yeah,
the-
no. The actual keys have a curve to them where your finger sits in it, and it recognizes exactly where you're at. It's genius.
I've never used it, so I can't-
Lenovo ThinkPads are the shit. The writing experience when you're writing is so much smoother.
Really?
And yes, it's like statistically proven to have less errors. They've taken people that type, X amount of words per minute, and they can improve the number of words per minute that they write just using a Lenovo, just using those long throw keys.
See, but that's only PC.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
But you
problem.
can get a keyboard like a Bluetooth keyboard that will mimic that. I mean, they have like some hardcore ones like mechanical keys, which are incredible because they have like clickety clack to them,
Yeah.
and you
And you
know
just kinda
exactly whether or not you pressed a T or an R, and it's like, and when you do it like that, man, it's like your errors. It's like for me, when I write, 65% of the time I'm stoned.
Yeah, and
so
when I write, I'm drinking.
I don't need to think where the keys are. I just want to think about the ideas.
Yeah.
And
what
that
you're saying.
allows me
To
to my
just-
fingers flow over those keys in a
Gotcha.
natural way. I can write. As a matter of fact, one of my Apple laptops is a 2015 laptop that I had refurbished because the keys
you
were
like the
better.
keys.
They had more throw to them back then. And everybody's going with sleek. Everybody wants good looking
I
and
like
sleek.
sleek,
I
yeah.
know you're an
Yeah.
aesthetics guy.
Yeah.
You like when I see like your fucking your pocket dump. You got everything lined up. It's all pretty and like you like the way shit looks.
I do.
I guess I kind of do too. But I mean, I'm more like obviously look at this garbage all over this fucking table. I'm a
No,
function.
you're more of an aesthetic guy than you act to like to let on.
In which way?
I mean, just kind of. There's a certain aesthetic to this place. It doesn't necessarily have to be like ultra modern, clean,
It's a little
minimalism.
chaotic.
But
It's a
it's
little chaotic.
organized chaos.
I guess there's some organization to it.
Yeah, yours is like rustic chaos.
Yeah, there's a little rustic to that. Yeah, there's a little of that. But I also like function.
Yeah.
And for me with writing, like I need a keyboard that functions. I was actually talking to my friend Lex. I was over at his house the other day, and he has one of those keyboards that are separated and then concave.
That mentally
seen
just
those?
drives me crazy. Like the thought of that. I don't know why.
You don't have to move your hands. It's just everything's like. And I go, how is that? I go, I used to have one of those. I haven't used one of those in a long time. He goes, oh, they ruin you for other keyboards.
Well, I think the reason why I don't like that is because I'm constantly going back and forth to my mouth because when I'm writing, I'm researching at the same time. So I'm like writing, going here, click. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't necessarily need to have a static position on the keyboard because I'm constantly moving my hands anyway.
I see what you're saying. I just like it to be the thing I think about the least. One of the things I really love about both, I have a Samsung phone too, and I can do it on that as well, is that I can talk into my notes, and I can, if I'm out and I have an idea, I just like a lot of a lot of this shit. These are ideas that I have for material. A lot of that shit I just talk into my phone. And it types it out. Like,
So,
and it's amazing how
I
good it
haven't really
works.
used because usually what I'll do is like I have the same setup except I have my reminders and then I'll have like different lists, and then I'll just go type it. So like
wonder
if
if it
I'm
works
working
with, like, here we go, Colion Noir. Bam.
So it's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah. And it's reading that you saying it's actually
wow,
pretty
that's
accurate.
nutty.
Yeah. So I clicked on the keyboard before it said accurate, but it heard you say that. Like, say something right now.
Wow, I think it's pretty nutty that you're able to accurately dictate exactly what I'm saying. Okay, that's creepy.
That's amazing, right?
It's in real time.
Come on, that's amazing.
That's Notepad?
That's Notes. That's Notes on Apple. That's just not a new application.
See,
It's
I've been
not-
using Evernote for everything. I haven't
Evernote
really used
is
it.
great.
I haven't used the dictation on Evernote yet.
Evernote is great, but
okay.
the thing is that this is native to Apple.
Gotcha.
But Samsung has Samsung Notes, so you could do it on
The same
that,
thing.
and Google has the same kind of thing.
Okay.
But the voice recognition software is fantastic now. It's really good.
Okay. See,
Like,
I just left it in the dust because before it would just be too like it just wouldn't write what I told it to write.
There's
then-
some of that. Like I sent a text out to a friend of mine today, and it fucked it up, and I didn't realize it until after
Do
I
you,
sent
do you
it.
send like voice text?
Sometimes, yeah.
I hate people that do that.
No,
hate it.
no,
And it's
not a
always-
voicemail text, like voice message.
Yeah, voice message where it's not writing it out. It's
No,
just
it's an audio that you
Yes.
have to listen to. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah,
You
those
do
are
that?
annoying. Those are annoying.
Okay.
No, I don't
yeah.
do that. No.
Yeah, I noticed people from California do it the most.
Really?
Yes.
You got to become friends with Alex Jones. That's how he communicates with me, because they all disappear. But no, you can talk into it. Like I can send you a text message. Like instead of saying, "Hey, go around to the right-hand corner of the building, and there's a red door. Knock on that. We'll let you in." I can just say it.
Gotcha. And
Go
they'll
around
just
to the corner of the
dictate
building.
what it is.
There's a red door. I'll let you in.
Gotcha.
Bam. Press send. And so I don't have to fuck with the thumb thing.
I'm dumb. You're right, because I do it in my Apple CarPlay.
Oh yeah, I do
And-
that. Yeah, I do that all the time. Like when I'm driving.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say, text
Same
Jamie.
thing,
Yeah, and it'll do that. Yeah.
So so now that I think about it, I just never did it outside of driving.
It's so good. It's so accurate.
I might
It's
have to-
incredible
I
how
might have to test
accurate
that
it
out.
is. But for me, it's like ideas. Like if I have an idea for a joke,
Mm-hmm.
like those ideas are so fleeting, and sometimes like I'll convince myself that I'm gonna. Jim, who was it? Who had Mitch Hedberg had a bit about how he kept a notepad by the bed,
Mm-hmm.
and so if he had an idea in the middle of the night, he would wake up. Or if I'm lazy, I'd convince myself it wasn't funny. But it's like
I have in my shower. I have one of those like notepad things in the shower that are like waterproof, and it has a pencil. I got it on Amazon, and so literally because I get a lot of my ideas on like topics to talk about in the shower.
Really?
And so I'll be in the shower, and like, oh yeah, I'll pull it out, write it on the little pad, and then you can just rip it off like a Post-it. Rip it off, and then take it and do what you need to do.
I get a lot of my ideas in the sauna.
Okay.
And I can't have my phone in the sauna or it'll shut off.
Yeah, because it gets hot.
It gets
Yeah,
too
I
hot.
learned
But
that the hard way.
the AirPods, this is I put this up on Instagram the other day, but if you're a person that gets in the sauna, get yourself some AirPod 1s, the first generation AirPods. Don't get AirPods 2, don't get 3, and don't get the Pros.
I have the Beats. Which ones do I have?
Those are good too, but
obsessed
they're
with those.
good in terms of sound, but in terms of the ability to withstand sauna.
Oh, okay.
It's just the
Okay.
heat of the sauna.
yeah.
The problem is it cooks the microphone.
Gotcha.
It either cooks the microphone or the sweat
Sweat
kills
kinda
the microphone.
short circuits the circuitry,
Because like
yeah.
I'll try answering the phone, like where the fuck are you calling me from? Like no one can understand me at all. So I have like a pair of AirPods that I have killed that just died recently, but I cooked those motherfuckers 4 or 5 days a week for like the past 2 or 3 years. And they
In the sauna.
just died.
Okay.
One of them, the left one, because the left I sit with my left side near the heater, and it just tapped out the other day. It's just like
Yeah, I was telling you, I just started doing the sauna thing. I haven't really.
it's fucking amazing.
It threw me for a loop the first couple times. I was like, whew.
You got to come in with me, buddy. Come in with me. We got one right here.
It sounds a little zesty, Joe.
That's not what I meant. I didn't mean zesty. We're gonna be clothed.
No, I have noticed. I did notice an improvement in my sleeping.
Oh yeah, it's an improvement in the way your muscles feel. You
Yeah.
feel like looser, more
really
relaxed,
do.
stress relief. And if you do that and the ice bath back to back, the Russians know what the fuck they're doing.
No ice baths for me.
You say that. You say that.
I can barely watch people do them, much less me do it.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I'm like, it just.
Not
I don't
that-
do cold very well.
Once you do it a couple of times. You get used to it. The first time I did it, there's a video of the first time I ever did it. I fucking panicked. I was out of there in like a minute and 30 seconds. I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, me and Cole don't mesh very well.
And then the second time I did it for like 4.5 minutes. And then the third time I did it for 20. Because I just wanted to convince myself.
Gotcha. Damn, 20 minutes in ice.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that's not good. Don't do that. Listen to me. Listen to me. Don't listen to me. That's what I tell people. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to my advice.
I will say, being out, like I remember I did the shooting course, and it was like shooting at extended ranges. So we're shooting out to like 600, 700, 800 yards. And and it was just white, just all snow and ice. And that was just amazing. That I love. But then again, I'm like decked out in these super
that's different.
tucked out. Like
You're feeling cold, but it's it's not real.
Yeah, it's like
No, the cold plunge is an existential threat to your existence. You get in there and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Your body just wants to get out of there. Yeah, I mean, it's so good for your body. It's so good for your muscles and for your joints, and it's not cost prohibitive. All you need is ice cubes in a bathtub. I mean, just get a couple of bags of ice from the grocery store or the gas station and throw them in a bathtub.
How often?
Fill it up with cold water. How often do I do it?
Yeah.
Almost every day.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, crap.
almost every day.
Damn.
Yeah. The only time I don't do it is right after I lift, because apparently it has some sort of an effect on hypertrophy, like which limits your muscles' ability to grow, because the part of the inflammation is actually good. The blood circulation, your body breaks down, you get that pump,
Yeah.
it breaks down the tissue,
Tissues and all
and it
that.
swells up and inflames, and it's your body saying, okay, we got to heal. This guy's trying to get swole, and then
lifting is annoying to me.
Why is it annoying?
It's like no, I love it. I do it at least 3 or 4 times a week. But it's especially when you're lifting for
Hypertrophy.
Hypertrophy.
Yeah.
It's the set rep, all that stuff. It's gotten to, and you know what I think it is? I follow too many fitness like pages, and so there's just so much different information being thrown at you from different perspectives.
Right.
So I got to the point I was like, no, I'm through 3 sets of 10, call it a day, get it out of here.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this game anymore.
3 sets of 10 still works.
Yeah.
The thing that works more than anything is consistency.
Yeah.
Be intelligent about your lifting. Don't hurt yourself, and consistency. That's the key.
And that's pretty much what I'm
Yeah.
trying to err on, because it's. I mean, there were times. Another thing too is I'm trying to maximize time. So I try to make my workouts as intense and as short as possible. So I'm like, let me get in, get out. I'm kind of doing this full body stuff. I'm trying to figure out how my body likes that.
When you say full body stuff, like what are you doing?
So what I'll do is I'll do lower body and then everything else the next day. And then I'll do that, have a rest day or two in between, and then that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
And so but my lower body is consistent of like right now I'm doing plyo and a lot of knees over toe stuff kind of combined.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do for my lower body.
That sounds like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of that too, and a lot of
Okay.
sled work.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Man, that knee over toes guy, he's changed my knees.
Too. Yeah, mine.
My knees are so much stronger. Like they feel more stable.
Yep.
Like everything about it.
I noticed a big difference because, like, I started noticing it when I was shooting. Like, I had this thing in my videos when I'm doing gun reviews. I like to just run for no reason. But as I got older, I just started. I was like, why am I moving so just stiff? Like, I'm just like nothing feels tight.
Right.
It just feels kind of sloppy.
Right.
And then I started doing that, and now I've kind of gotten the youth back in my legs. Where now it's like I can take off at a moment's notice. But like I was telling you also, since I've been doing kind of like this plyo stuff, the plyometrics and that I've been doing, I think my body's shocked. So now I'm dealing with some Achilles tendonitis in my
You
Achilles.
need a cold plunge.
You know what? It's funny. You actually might be right.
Get in there. Come on, man. Let me film it.
Dude.
Let's do it right after here.
Not right after here, but I might let you in the future. I
let's
might let
do
you
it.
film it in the future.
Okay, next time you come
Yeah.
to town, we'll make a day out of it. We'll work out, and then we'll get in the sauna and do the cold plunge and make a video.
I should start an OnlyFans,
Oh boy.
and that'd be the first video.
I
of
think
me
if
doing
you
it.
start an OnlyFans, automatically you're gonna get zesty. If people are gonna sign up for it, they're gonna want a little zest. What percentage of OnlyFans is like gay guys?
I have no idea.
Because I would feel like that's like so available for free.
I don't think
Like,
it's the
dudes will
same.
show you their
I don't
dick.
know why I think it's the same. I doubt it's the same.
It's not the same because girls will like hold back.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
like for a girl to show you like her pussy is like a lot of work. I would imagine.
Is it?
I would imagine. I mean, with some girls.
I mean, there are a lot of girls on OnlyFans that are doing just that.
Right, but like, how many guys, like if you're a girl, if you're a hot girl, or if you're a hot guy, how many guys will show you a picture of their dick? A lot.
I won't.
You won't. Well, you're smart. You're also public. But if you're like a regular dude trying to get laid and a girl says, show me your dick, and you're like, all right.
So, okay, maybe I lie.
Right, because, well, if
I
you
had a girlfriend back in like, I think it was like once right before I started college, or like my freshman year in college. She would like send me a picture of it, and I was like, what? She was like especially when we weren't together. She
Sounds
just
like a
wanted
good girl.
I mean, I guess. I mean,
sounds like a lot of fun.
I mean, it didn't last very long.
Sometimes.
Well, I had to get away from that one. That got a little real toxic.
Yeah. It sounds like very male. Show me your dick.
I mean, real talk.
Aggressive.
And I was like, okay. And this would happen like, not on a regular basis, but regular enough where I'm like, started feeling normal. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to stop doing this. So there may or may not be pictures of my dick floating around on the internet somewhere.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, listen, some people don't like it, but some people like it, right?
I think it's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird.
Some girls will tell you, like, why do guys send dick pics? And then other girls will be like, send me a dick pic, motherfucker.
I'm like,
yeah. Like, I don't know.
Now you're not getting one out of me.
Good for you.
Yeah. Not happening.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like the variation of human beings in terms of like what they like and what they don't like is so extreme.
So all over the place.
All over the place.
So all over the place.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's
even just among my friends, like the stuff that, like the type of girls we're into, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Oh yeah, I have friends that just like to be in danger. They're not happy unless they're doing something that could ruin their entire life if someone just decided to.
And I'm the complete opposite.
Me
I'm like,
fucking too.
No danger, full discretion. I don't want to be out there. Like, I'm like, no.
Thank God dick pics weren't a thing when I was 15. I just think about like when you first started getting laid when you're like 16. Like what? Imagine if there was dick pics.
Bro. Like I said, that there may be or may not be some floating around.
Well, if the thing is with deep fakes, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it's deep fakes, there's like every beautiful woman that has ever been in a movie or a television show could easily be in a porn just through a deep fake now.
I remember I remember at the genesis of that where it was like so and so famous actress in porn scene, and you're like, wait, what? Not me, but
you get sucked in.
Yeah, right.
Well, imagine when they get to the point where they can create robots. Like when they can create a sex robot.
I mean, they're pretty damn close.
They're pretty damn close.
Pretty damn close.
But if they did decide to come up with a sex robot that looked exactly like Jamie.
This would be an interesting
and
place
then
to live.
Jamie has to watch videos of all these dudes just plowing his fields.
Now, there is something to be said.
Hey,
there's something to be
Hey, easy.
I wonder if there's something to be said about them kind of, reaching that level of technology and a lot of guys transcending from OnlyFans over to those things.
Oh, it's going to happen. That's going to happen for sure. But then it's going to be like, how many robots can you afford? You're going to have a house filled with fuck robots?
I mean, they'll become vacuums at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one story about a guy, he had like, I think, what was it, a story? I think it was something I saw on Instagram where a guy was talking about like he went to a guy's house because he was doing like some cable work or something, and he walks in and he's like, all these sex dolls.
And a slight smell of fish. Fuck is that smell? It's just rotten jizz everywhere. I think there's gonna come a time where it might actually never even get to that, because virtual reality might get to a point where they have these haptic feedback suits like you were talking about with the guns getting zapped. But I think they're going to get to a neural interface where they're going to be able to recreate the sensations. Like if they can figure out
talking about pacifying a society.
Right. Well, that's the Matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, what's crazy about the Matrix is when the movie first came out, which is like, when was it? It was in the 90s, correct? 99. So when the movie first came out, we were fascinated by it. Like, whoa, cool. But it was pure science fiction.
Yeah, not even close, right? Like
now, You watch the Matrix 1 now, you're like, how far off are we? Not that far. Within our lifetime, I expect there to be a dilemma where people do not want to go outside. They only want to lock into a thing and experience a fake
like the
life.
real.
Yeah, for
I
now.
like the real. No, I mean, that's just how I'm built.
Right, but do you think that, like, I mean, I also like talking to people on the phone, right?
I don't.
I don't want to have to go somewhere to talk to someone. If I have a friend who lives in California, I like to be able to call him up. Hey, what's going on?
So I'm weird. So when it comes to my friends, I'll throw on AirPods, talk to them on the phone all day long, right? When it comes to women, I prefer to be in person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I've yet to really truly understand it. But if I'm going to engage with a woman, I'd rather prefer it to be in person, face to face.
Well, that makes sense because there's no misconstruing what you're saying. Like, text is the weirdest. Because you could text someone something and they don't know if you're joking. Or,
yeah. And I don't really care too much for like excessive texting back and forth. Largely because I'm just so busy. So it's hard for me to stay in the moment of the conversation. And then what'll happen too sometimes is and this is just general purpose, not even just women, but I will forget to go back and respond. Because if you send me something that requires an extensive explanation, I don't want to just give you a half-ass answer right then and there.
Yeah.
So I'll wait. And then sometimes I'll just forget to go back.
Yeah, dude, I have to change my phone number. I have so many texts that I can't respond to. Like, I'm going to check my phone right now. I'll tell you how many texts that I have.
Oh.
What does it say here? I have 96 texts. Look at that. Not bullshitting. 96. What do you got?
430.
Jesus.
433, is it?
Well, you're just delinquent.
Look at the emails.
How's that's insane? Oh my God. How do you have so many people texting you?
Dude.
You have no idea who's texted you.
I'm done. I don't.
You just give that up to random people?
No.
Homeless folks?
The funny thing is, so what happened is this was supposed to be the business phone.
Oh,
And so this is
it's
my
one of
personal.
those
So what happened
deals.
is I didn't realize I don't remember this number. So when people would ask me who I would normally give the business phone to, I would just err on the side of my default would just go, okay, here, take this number.
That's funny.
Yeah. So now they're contaminated. So it's just
I have a general rule that when I remember my phone number, that's when I change it.
okay.
Because I
Since
never
we
know
give
my
it-
number. Like, I've gone places, they go, what's your phone number? I'm
I'm
like,
like,
I don't know. I don't want to know.
yeah.
I can remember my wife's number. I can remember my daughter's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember a couple of my friends' numbers, and that's it.
The only numbers I know is my mom and my aunt. Memorized. That's the only numbers I
I
know.
used to be a wizard with phone numbers.
Yeah. Well, because we had to be.
Yes, man. I was so good at it. I could remember like booking agents and comedy clubs and friends. And I remember my fucking number from high school, you know, but when my home number. But now it's like.
Yeah, I have. It's a rap. I can't remember it.
But isn't it just like like what you need to remember? Like you don't need to remember it anymore, so you just don't.
Don't.
Yeah.
It's like your brain just. It's kind of like getting around now. Like,
Right.
Like it's nuts.
Navigation.
Like how
Yeah.
I legit do not know how I was able to get around without navigation. I still navigate to my house in the city that I live in.
Isn't that wild? But it's also good if you're using something like Waze because it tells you if shit goes sideways. Like you get to, like I see people hitting blinkers. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, these people are on Waze too. And they're
Yep.
going off of these
Waze
weird
bars,
side
yep.
streets.
Yep.
I remember in New Jersey.
And cops.
Cops?
Hell yeah.
Oh, where the cops
they
are.
tell you.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Waze has gotten
Yeah.
me out of situations that my radar detector wouldn't have got me.
Isn't that interesting? Police officer ahead.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, Waze.
I
You
will
fucking-
not. Yeah. Anytime I'm doing, like when I'm driving to Austin, I
Yeah.
have my Waze.
One of my favorite things that people do is when you're driving and they flash the lights at you. Cops ahead, bro.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
we're in this
yeah.
together. We're in this together. I like that.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, I love doing it to people and they give you the thumbs up. Like, yeah, we're in this together.
I sometimes am a bit of a dick. So,
You don't do it?
well, no. So, like, sometimes when, like, somebody's, like, riding me a little too close and we're both speeding and it gets slightly annoying, so then I'll just move over and slow. And I know there's a cop ahead. I'll slowly back up.
Oh, you bait them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every once in a while. But generally speaking, if you're not being an ass, yeah, I'm going to let you know.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tap on the brakes for you or, you know.
How long do you think we are from completely automated automobile travel?
I don't want it to get there.
Yeah.
I don't want it to get there.
I'm not sure if I want it to get there either.
Yeah. But I mean, like I was just telling you, I am, like, remember last time I was on here, I was talking about how much I would never get a Tesla. And then now come in today, and I'm like, yo, you
You
know,
want to drive mine? You want to drive mine for a little bit today?
The Plaid, yes.
Yeah, drive it around. Drive it around. You might change your mind. I do miss the sound of the engine. You know, I love engines. Obviously, I'm a gearhead. I love a V8.
Yeah.
I love the rumble of an American muscle car. I love that sound. But goddamn, that Tesla is a preposterous vehicle.
I'm not gonna lie. So right now where I am, if I get a Tesla for an Uber, I'm happy. There's something about them. I don't know why.
Quiet.
It's just the quiet. It's just a clean space. It's just different.
Very minimalist.
Yeah.
I think too much so. Like I've said this about like I have the new one with the wacky steering wheel.
Yeah.
The steering wheel sucks. I don't like it. It's not. It's okay when you're driving straight because the ergonomics of the Tesla are fantastic. When you're holding on to it, your elbows are rested. It's very good, and it actually makes you have two hands on the wheel more often. Because I would drive with my one hand, which is not the best. The best way is two hands like this.
Now, as I've gotten older, I've noticed my hand's starting to slide more to the side. Because I always wondered, like when like my uncles I'd see driving and stuff.
10 and 2, Colion. 10 and 2.
So I'm becoming a little bit more responsible as I age.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still 12 in my mind.
But it's not good for turning, like when you have to turn in parking spots and stuff.
Because you
it's
kind of
like,
have to find the wheel.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's kind of like the paddles sometimes. When we're like, do you prefer the paddles mounted to the steering column, or you want them like where they're static? Or do you want to mount it to the steering wheel so that when they turn, they turn?
I've had cars that have paddles. I have never used the paddles.
Really?
I keep it in
Yeah,
automatic.
let me tell you, there are some cars you really want to use the paddles.
You say that, but I like shifting. I like a clutch.
I'm talking about when you don't have a standard
If I
transmission.
don't have a clutch, I fucking keep that bitch and drive. I'm like, I'm not pretending. I'm a speed racer out here.
So-
That stupid
That's
paddle.
me. That's me.
Nonsense.
Yeah, I'm the speed racer.
Well, you have a
poser.
very fast car too. We should talk about
Now,
that.
here's the crazy thing about that.
Okay.
So I want to say about a few weeks ago, my friend, because I'm slowly starting getting into this, like going to track days and stuff. A friend of mine was like, he's like, yeah, I just bought a Miata.
Miatas are dope.
I didn't. Now I realize it now. But when he told me, I was like, "That's zesty."
It's more feminine than zesty.
Yeah.
It's like you know.
Zesty is kind of a universal kind of term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it can go. Yeah, it can go a lot of ways. And so he's like, "I'm gonna bring it over," and I'm like, "Okay." So he's like, he brings it over. It's like this convertible, zesty ass Miata, and then it's a standard. And he's like, "Drive it." I was like, "I don't want to drive your zesty ass Miata." And he's like, "Drive it." So I get in there, get sitting. I'm like, God, this is super zesty. And then I start driving it, and then I'm running through the gears. And I'm like, this thing is awesome.
It's a go-kart.
It's so fun.
So
It's
fun.
so fun.
There's a reason why Miatas are around for as long as they have, and they've
Yeah.
barely changed.
I literally started contemplating, all right, should I get a Miata? Like, I think I want to, and I want to get it in a standard transmission.
Gordon Ryan has a Miata. Gordon Ryan is the greatest jiu-jitsu athlete of all time. He's as manly a man as is humanly possible.
And he's
got a Miata. And he's got a standard Miata. It's like, it's a great fucking car, man. And
I look, consider me converted, because I'm telling you.
You ever heard of the company Flying Miatas?
No.
Ooh. They take a Miata and they put a fucking V8 in it.
But see, I don't want a powerful Miata.
Really?
I know. No.
That sounds zesty.
I like.
Now I'm reconsidering.
There's just because I want to be able to run it to its absolute limit, right? And so without having to worry about like having too much power or like having to navigate the power,
right?
I can just run it ragged and just focus on the
driving experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. I used to have an Acura NSX that I loved that for.
I wanted an NSX so bad.
They were great, and it's only like 290 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of horsepower.
I've only heard excellent things about them.
It never fucked up. It's a Honda. It's crazy because it's a Honda sports car. What is that? Is that a flying Miata? Yeah. Watch this. That car is so fast.
This is the flying
I actually watch a lot of
Habu.
Look at this.
Habu being a small venomous snake from Japan. Why is that appropriate? Well, because this is an MX-5 with a Chevy small block V8 in it.
Woo!
6.3 litres of V8, 525 brake horsepower.
What?
It's an old recipe, but it's a very good one.
In a Miata?
In a
Small
Miata.
car,
Just
big
listen
engine.
how it sounds.
What's not to love?
I think I might have to get one. The world's smallest muscle car. Keep that rolling,
reason they
James.
use the
What are
LS3
you
engine is
doing?
because they call
Let me hear some of the music. Look at that LS3. Woo!
Okay, okay, that's kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie.
Distribution by
That is pretty lit.
1%, so 53% of the front now, 47% of the rear, as opposed to 52 in the standard car, which is
It's only 1%
incredible, really.
difference. Only 1% difference in the
For an
weight
engine,
distribution.
It's a proper V8.
But how much weight is it adding?
God.
Anyway, as fun as it is,
Well, if
driving
it's
in
only
some
adding
straight lines,
1% in the front, it can't be much.
Well, as far as distribution of weight, but
It's not. Those is
So
what's
what are those
amazing is those LS engines are not heavy, man.
because I know when they did, I know when they dropped that.
know that it had twice the number of cylinders under.
to Willow Springs.
Dude, that
Just
makes,
All right, that's kind of
that
dope.
makes my dick hard. Look at that. And it's kind of cool looking.
I actually agree with you.
That's a cool looking
Yeah.
car, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder how the tires deal with the amount of torque.
wouldn't
Like,
matter,
look at
though.
the
The tires-
skinny ass bitch ass tires.
The tires are so cheap to get, though. It really wouldn't matter. Just run through them.
Right, but I'm saying in terms of like
Handling the.
like handling that amount of torque and power. I bet it drifts like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
You stomp on it. Look at that thing, though. Let me hear some of this.
The Grizzly engine always makes its presence felt, whatever the situation. You're also always aware that you're in a relatively short wheelbase, so slides can start and stop very quickly. But the Fox Racing suspension, a name probably more associated with motorbikes and mountain bikes, is impressive on both road and track.
That thing looks wild.
You know, nothing relaxes me more than watching car review videos.
I love car review
Flying the
videos.
Arctic conversion costs
That's if you look in my YouTube
History,
feed,
yeah.
a lot of it is car
Yeah,
reviews.
same
I
here.
love watching them, man.
Who's your favorite reviewer?
Matt Farah,
Really?
Smoking Tire. That's my boy.
I used to watch a lot of Matt Farah. I don't know why I've stopped. There's no reason for it.
Well, I know Matt personally. He's a friend. So there's that too.
He has a car I really want.
Which one?
He has an Aston Martin Vanquish that he converted to manual.
Oh.
That he sent over and converted to a manual that I think is it's hot shit.
You know
Like,
what I want? They just converted as a company. See if you can find this. A company that just took a modern 2021 plus GT500, which has only been paddle shift, and they converted it to manual. And I'm thinking, I'm an old school meathead, man. I
see, and I'm
love
like,
those muscle
I
cars,
get a lot of shit from my channel whenever I do my car reviews because I do car reviews from time to time. So I like sleek, sexy European.
I do too.
Yeah, that's
I do too.
That's kind of, but I still want a Chevelle. I want like an old school car.
I have a 1970 like John Wick.
Yeah. So there. I'm a little torn about the one in Batman.
Oh yeah.
Now the opening scene was probably one of the greatest scenes ever for the introduction of the Batmobile.
I
in that movie.
enjoyed the new Batman movie.
I fell asleep.
Oh, how dare you? Who am I talking
Too
to?
long.
Too long? Really?
And it was too. So okay, you got to.
Did you watch it at home?
No, I watched it in the movie theater.
Really?
Yeah.
He
And
fell asleep in a movie.
yeah.
That's a well-armed man. So comfortable he falls asleep in a movie theater.
Well, yeah, I'm a Christian Bale Batman kind of guy. Like that is to me when you say Batman Bruce Wayne, it's Christian Bale.
I think so too. I think he was the most believable in terms of like a bad motherfucker who is Batman. Like he was jacked. He looked like he could fuck people up. He's a big dude.
And it was a lot of
you know?
contrast between him as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like
The voice bothered me. I'm Batman.
It's like, man, you're gonna lose your voice talking like that, and then everyone's gonna know. You're gonna show up at work the next day
that's true,
talking all
right.
fucked up. Like, hey man, what you been up to?
How's that partying?
Partying? You don't look. You got a black eye. What happened?
Well, I mean, he owned Wayne Enterprise, so I mean, he didn't really have to go into work.
Batman is kind of the lamest superhero ever because he's basically just a rich guy.
Say shit like that, Joe.
What? Who's the
Batman
best?
is Batman.
Batman's the best?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Which is odd because he doesn't use guns, and that should be the reason why I don't like him.
Yeah, he doesn't ever use a gun.
No, he doesn't.
That's kind of crazy. I never even thought about that until right now.
Doesn't kill people either.
He never kills anybody, but doesn't he in the comic books?
There's one where he does, and it's actually pretty badass. I can't remember the name of it though. And he has a gun. I think he's like shooting his Desert Eagle in that one too. Yeah.
Well, I used to like the Punisher for that reason. Punisher fucked
was
everybody up.
Punisher was
The real Punisher was like built like Batman.
Yeah.
Like the real Punisher was like Batman without the suit. Just jacked.
which is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a great origin story. Just a soldier just decided to fucking go on a rampage and kill all the organized criminals because all the other superheroes were trying to arrest people. And he was just
He's like, fuck
that, killing everybody.
Did you see Top Gun?
I did not. I heard it's great though.
It's phenomenal.
So Batman is your favorite superhero?
Yes.
What about?
I literally there's a running joke that I like in the community that people know. If you follow me close enough and long enough, I think I'm the Black Bruce Wayne. That's the exact reaction that I want. It's like that's how goofy it is.
It's so dumb.
That's how much I love Batman.
But what about Spider-Man? He can climb walls and shoot webs and shit and perform superhuman feats of athleticism and strength.
Spider-Man is zesty.
Jesus.
No, I'm
okay,
playing.
what about the Hulk?
I do like the Hulk.
What about the Hulk?
I like the Hulk, but he's not my, like, I like it when he comes in, destroys shit, and then leaves, right? Just the chaos. But other than that, he's forgettable to me.
Well, the Hulk makes all the other Avengers useless. Because when they're on their own, why don't you just call the Hulk? Just call the Hulk. What are you doing? What are you doing with your bow and arrow? That fucking guy with the bow and arrow is the dumbest. And I love Jeremy Renner. I think Jeremy Renner's awesome. But that character's the wackest shit. Like, if I was him, I'd be like, man, I really want to be an Avenger, but fuck, why you got to make me the guy with no strength at all, no powers whatsoever? I just have a bow and arrow, which is the dumbest weapon.
At least Black Widow has guns.
Yeah, and this is coming from a guy who's an archery enthusiast. Yeah. I have a fucking archery range at my studio, and I think that guy's whack. It's so dumb.
I mean, I think Batman is the best, and he doesn't use guns, so I guess that kind of...
But, I mean, how many arrows do you have, bro? How many times can you do this? You can only do this so many times.
He be flicking the arrows, though. He does mean...
Well, do you know that this whole idea of the quiver on the back is not really how they really traveled with arrows?
Really? Where'd they travel with?
Well, they didn't, like, pull arrows off their back, and they used to carry them in between their fingers for the most part. And they used to be able to shoot multiple arrows, especially the Comanche. They would carry these arrows. And what is that? Who's that gentleman that has that YouTube page that he figured out, like, from looking at old images and depictions of archery from like thousands of years ago, realized that our idea of them having a quiver and pulling an arrow out, and see, he keeps them all in his fingers like that. And this guy figured out how to shoot multiple arrows in a second.
But what do they do? How do they carry them when they're traveling?
Anderson. That's a good question. I don't know where. Maybe they had a quiver for that. But the idea that they reached back and pulled an arrow every time they wanted to shoot, like that Hawkeye guy.
So basically an assault arrow.
Yeah, like arrow. This guy, the way he did it, this is how they think like the Comanches did it and the Mongols did it. They carried multiple arrows in their fingers and just transformed it or transferred it rather to the string, like with each finger. Like, see if you get a video of how he does it, how he shoots multiple arrows, because it's pretty wild.
Anytime I see bow and arrows, I think Hunger Games.
Yeah, that got a lot of people into archery too. What is he doing here? So watch how he's recreating how the Comanche did it. See how the Comanche would carry multiple arrows in their hands. Like, there's images of them holding multiple arrows. But if you could see how he did it, so like, only one movement to shoot each arrow. He's saying that this is bullshit. So see how he's doing it?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, look how quickly he's shooting all these multiple arrows.
Okay, that's impressive as hell.
Yeah, he's showing like how this would take so much time to do. Only one movement to shoot each arrow. And he's saying this is like kind of ridiculous, which makes sense. So he can throw these things up in the air and he can shoot multiple arrows. See, get to the point where he's doing that.
He's doing it on left right there.
He's exaggerating.
I skipped to the end of the video.
Goofiness.
I skipped way to the end already.
Oh, okay.
He's showing how he would do it.
There's a few other. Oh, so he can do this. Watch this. Watch this. This is crazy. Sunk, 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 sunk. So he can shoot like 3 arrows in a second. 3 hours in 1.5 seconds, which is pretty crazy. So this is why the Comanches fucked up all the early settlers, because the settlers had muskets.
So they were.
Yeah, and it wasn't. Did you see the images that we have outside? One of the images is Jack Hayes, and Jack Hayes was the original Texas Ranger. And what he did was incorporate pistols, like a revolver.
Okay.
He was the first guy to incorporate a Colt revolver, which had individual cylinders that you would replace.
Yeah.
They didn't have like a regular revolver where you'd put the bullets in. Yeah. But they would carry multiple cartridges.
So it's kind of like so like some of the reloading mechanisms for wheel guns now, they're not actual revolvers, but they're like these little.
You push it in and
you click
yeah,
and you take it out.
they used to do that for revolvers before they figured out semi-automatic
Yeah.
pistols. But so the Colt had this, and nobody wanted them, which is wild. And then he figured out how to use them against the Comanche because they had to do a bunch of different things to deal with the Comanche, and that's the gun. And see if there's a video on that. That's Captain Jack Hayes. That guy right there, that's the image that we have outside, along with Quanah Parker, who was the guy who his mother was captured by the Comanche, and he was the chief of the Comanches. He was half Comanche and half white, and he became the last Comanche chief. And it was interesting because he was half European, so he's a big fucking dude.
Yeah.
As opposed to most of the Comanches were like 5'5",
stature, yeah.
5'7". They were tiny, which allowed them to ride horses better.
Okay.
Which is interesting too, right? So this is okay. So this is how the gun worked. So this original revolver, he was the first to implement this in war because they did. Where's the trigger?
That's what I was just thinking. I was like,
Did it have no trigger? Did you have to like trigger it with the back? How's he using this? So did he like have to push the hammer forward? How did he do it? I thought it had a trigger. That is wild. Does this guy shoot this thing in this video? So he pushes it.
the
trigger
trigger
pops
comes out.
up.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And then the hammer busts forward, and it ignites the round. Huh. And so he would have to like break it down, pull that cartridge out, put a new one in, but it would take 5 rounds. And look at how these balls. Wow, that is wild.
I think, man, those balls are nasty things, man.
I know. Well, it was, it was brutal back then, man.
Yeah.
Just the fucking way that they existed on the fucking plains. And they also implemented what they call cold camping, where they would camp without any fire because the Comanche would find them. Because these dumbasses would light fires. Like, hey, I'm going to cook my beans by the fire. Hip-a-do.
One-handed, particularly.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Well, it's pretty fucking good in comparison to a musket because having those 5 shots made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Because the Comanche would run up on them, and the Comanche also figured out how to ride sideways. So they would hang off the side of their horse and shoot underneath the neck of the horse with their bow.
Okay.
Which is wild,
Yeah.
right? So they would be able to be protected by their fucking horse. And they were also the first of the Plains Indians that figured out how to breed and how to maintain large populations of horses. So they had the most horses.
Yeah, I don't trust horses.
How so?
I just don't like when them, like all the times I've ever ridden them. Because like when you're riding a horse, you understand what you're dealing with as far as an animal.
Yeah.
And it's just at any given moment, if he doesn't want me on here, I'm not on here.
Well, that's true too. But back then, you had no choice.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that would stop me from riding a horse. It's just that's always kind of in the back of my mind.
Can you imagine? I mean, here we are in 2022. Imagine that 150 years ago, there were no options. You had to ride a horse. That's it. That's so recent, man.
Yeah.
That's so recent.
Nutty, man. Just think back. I mean, think about it now. You have your Tesla does 0 to 60 what 1.9 seconds?
Yeah. And it's so crazy.
Like that's nuts.
Yeah.
And then it can drive itself.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're going and how fast we're going, which is all just from the gun perspective, it's weird sometimes because people look at the Second Amendment and they're like, it's talking about muskets.
Yeah.
It's not talking about muskets.
Oh, people need to shut the fuck up.
like,
Everybody
really?
who says that.
It's so okay. So you want to relegate me to a musket while the government and all the criminals are using modern firearms. I'm supposed to only have a musket.
Yeah. And then there's the argument like, well, you would never take up arms against the government. Why would you ever need to take up arms against the government? We say that because everyone's armed. But if,
Exactly.
if only the government was armed, you would wish you had a fucking gun.
I'm telling you, like, at the end of the day, and I was talking to my friend about this, and I was like, if you think about it, so Tiananmen Square,
Yeah.
right? They pretty much bulldoze right over those people. And then you go counter that with the American narrative, say, for instance, what happened in the 1960s with the Black Panthers showing up on the Capitol. You had a group of black men in the 60s showing up to the Capitol, and all they could do was have a standoff.
Different world.
You see, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, they subsequently passed some laws, and you can debate whether or not that was racially motivated. But at the end of the day, that demonstrates to you the necessity of the Second Amendment. It's not always about, let me go out here and overthrow the government. It's about keeping it in check. That's what it's designed to do. Because even now, the government has to kind of tiptoe with the citizens in the United States because they understand these people are armed. We can only go so far with the way we try to be heavy-handed about certain things.
Which goes back to Australia during the pandemic.
Exactly.
Where Australia
was
is
just like,
unarmed.
Yep.
And they were like, you can't go outside. You can't work. You can't go to the grocery
Can't do
store.
any of
You
that.
must comply.
Yep.
And they forced everyone into compliance.
Yep. And there's nothing, because there was no threat of any real resistance.
Exactly. And people will say, well, that's crazy. You shouldn't do that anyway. But the bottom line is like, you can't rely on human beings to have that much control over human beings.
Can't.
This idea of the government is so, it's this abstract concept because the government is essentially comprised only of human beings. That's it.
Yeah.
And when human beings have that kind of control over other human beings, we just have a fucking natural inclination to tell people what to do.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it's just the nature of being, which is why things were set up the way that they were set up to be checks against. So why we have three branches of the government. They were supposed to all be a check on each other because they understood human nature.
It's just hard for people to recognize that when we live in times of general peace.
That's really what it is, what it boils down to. It's the idea, like for a lot of people, conceptualizing the idea that they would have to deal with a tyrannical, especially here in America.
Yeah.
To deal with the tyrannical government in their minds.
And then people see that, like, don't tread on me flag, and they start fucking panicking. Oh, you want to fucking take over the government?
That's not what that's about.
Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad.
It's talking to the government. The same way the Constitution was talking to the government. A lot of people misconstrue that. The Second Amendment wasn't telling us what we can do. It was telling the government what it can't do, which is infringe on our right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, but there was a video that Samuel Rivera put out about a rant that I made. A lot of people got their panties in the wad about it because I was talking about freedom. And I said essentially that every single civilization up until 1776 was a dictatorship.
Yep.
And they're like, what about Greece? They all fell apart, man. They all fucking fell apart. Like, these ideas are great until Greece is actually a great example because there's a guy named Brian Murarescu who wrote a book called The Immortality Key that's all about the ancient Greek societies and the Enlightenment, and that this is most likely due to the fact that these people were all taking psychedelic drugs until it was shut down by the Roman emperors. Like, they came in and shut everybody down. And the reason why they shut everybody down, because you can't control people who are tripping balls and inventing democracy. Because
Isn't that kind of what happened here in America? with
that is
psychedelics?
very similar. It's very similar.
And then you
in
know
many
me
ways.
about it. I'm like super like, I ain't trying any psychedelics, but
You
I also
should.
understand.
Why do you say that?
It's just a control freak in me.
But you got to let that go, dude. That's
I do, but
control is strength. You have control because you have discipline, and that discipline is a strength. But there's a lot of strength in understanding that there's paths to different ways of looking at things that you just need to let go and find those ideas and concepts.
I don't disagree with you. I don't. You're just going to have to do better.
Well, why don't you try the isolation tank first? I exposed you to that today.
As soon as you
I
told
showed
me about that shit, I was like, yep, I'm not going in that motherfucker.
But it's so easy. You can open the door. You open the door when you don't like it
It'd be
anymore.
worthless. I'd literally open it in 3 seconds.
No.
Once I just, I'm like,
You would
okay,
relax
get
and
me
you'd
outta here.
settle in and you'd be fine. You'd settle in. I'd put a gun on Velcro, right? Attach it to the wall. So if some shit went down, so you'd be like lying down in the water, you go, there's a gun, there's my gun. If things got sketchy, you start having hallucinations, reach up and feel that staccato right there on the wall and like, okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good.
I mean, that might help a little bit.
Yeah, it's control is good, but it's also you got to realize there's some control in not being in control, like being able to let go of that control.
I think what it is too, it's so like, I'm an only child, and so I've spent a lot of time with myself. And so one thing about like I'm not really big on trying to control people. Like I'm very big on like do you, right? My control is always kind of myself. It's a matter of, since I've spent so much time with myself, and what goes on up here, I don't like the idea of anything interfering, what could possibly interfere with that.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and so that's what I will say, I'm not saying that there aren't things that could make that better, right? That could help enlighten and elevate. I just don't know right now if I'm at a point where I think the benefit is worth the potential risk.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. Well, there's a risk, and that's something that needs to be stressed with anything when you deal with the human mind.
Yeah.
You know, some people have a tendency towards schizophrenia and psychotic breaks, and there's all sorts of weird things.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah. Look what happened to Keith Moon. You know, like there's a lot of people that have taken acid and lost their fucking mind. That's real. I know guys who've taken pot edibles and lost their fucking minds.
Yeah.
You know, I know them personally, where they used to be this way and now they're that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I'm aware of all the potential positives. I'm just like, for some reason, it hasn't reached a point where I felt like it's kind of worth exploring and taking that risk.
Well, here's what's worth exploring is microdosing.
I've heard about microdosing.
I think microdosing is the future for a lot of people because the amounts that we're talking about are essentially like it's a very mild feeling. It's not even like being remotely high. It's very mild elevation and reduction of stress and relaxation. That's all it is. And it makes you like just nicer. It makes things feel better. It makes the world feel like a better place.
But isn't that the kind of the equivalent of like secondhand high?
No. Secondhand high can get you paranoid. I remember I got high once in a room with my dog, and she was hiding under the couch. I was like, what the fuck's going on with the dog? And then I realized, the dog, not under the couch. She was hiding under one of the corner tables. And I was like, what's going on? And I'm realized, oh my God, she was in the room with us when Joey Diaz and I were doing bong hits. And then this poor dog, who was a rescue dog already, so she was already a little sketched out.
Yeah.
She got paranoid, poor little girl.
Yeah, me, that's the thing, like with me and we don't get, I fight the high. Like the time that I haven't smoked weed since college.
Yeah,
and it's just because I know me, I'm gonna fight it.
It's an ego thing. Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean an ego in a bad way. I mean, it's like your body's trying to protect you. Yeah, your mind rather is trying to protect you. But that's also because you're a disciplined guy who gets things done, and you don't want that to fuck with you. And I understand that. Yeah. That's how I was before I started smoking pot.
Yeah. And I think also it does, like, so I think there's some people who are very high functioning who smoke. And then I think there are some people, like even back then when I was kind of getting a little high, because it's like I noticed that the contrast was too much for me. So I started becoming a little more lazy, so to speak. And I'm not saying weed makes you lazy. I'm just saying for me,
it can.
I knew that it didn't make me as productive as I normally am.
Right.
Whereas I know other people who it's a perfect balance for them, and they high functioning people.
Yeah,
who can do that.
I'm too crazy. I need something to just take some of the chimpanzee edge out of my brain. And that's what it does for me. It just gets me to a better place. And I don't do it all the time, but I do it enough, and I'm comfortable enough with it that I know that there's some benefits to it. But when everybody says that pot makes you lazy, I'm like, bitch, keep up with me. Let's go. Come talk crazy.
Yeah.
Don't see, because you can't say that, because everybody has a different reaction to it. And I'm not saying that everybody would have that same feeling that I get from it, because I don't think that's true, and I don't think it's for everybody.
And the irony, though, is, like I said before, you're also talking to a guy who drinks.
Right.
And I know why I drink.
But it's so controlled. Like, we had one glass of whiskey during this podcast. Yeah. That's it. One glass.
Yeah. Because I know how it also nice. Part of it too is like, even writing, I can only do half of a glass. Because the moment I go full glass, my writing starts to shit.
Crazy. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I largely drink to relax. Right. That's why I say I stop at a certain point, because past that point, I'm no longer relaxing. Right. I'm just fucking drunk.
Partying.
Yeah.
You're getting hammered.
Yeah. And so that's not something that I really kind of enjoy. Now, have I done it? Of course.
Yeah.
And I've had a great time a few times doing that.
It's a different thing, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's because I'm so like, I'm going to say like, not on edge, but just 100% go. I'm always like, all right, I got to do this. When it comes down, it's hard sometimes to get a point where I'm just like, all right, just relax.
But alcohol is so regulated that, like, if you like a glass of whiskey is consistently a glass of whiskey. It might have a different taste to it, but the impact it has on your psyche,
pretty much the same.
Yeah. Weed is so variable. and edibles. Oh my God. I mean, it's like,
Dude, I've heard horror stories about edibles.
I'll tell you my own. Yeah. I mean, I've had wild fucking paranoia when I've gotten too high before. But I think there's a benefit even in that. And then I come off of it and with an understanding of things that are bothering me.
Gotcha.
Like these things that I got paranoid about, it's probably like some unresolved issues or some thoughts that I have in my head that I need to really work out.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's not for everybody, man.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not for people with a tendency towards schizophrenia. That's a fact. That's a real, I had a debate once with this guy, Mike Hart, who's a cannabis doctor from Canada, and Alex Berenson, who is a guy who used to write for the New York Times, who wrote a book called Tell Your Children that's all about the dangers of marijuana. And, and I was on his side. I was like, not on the cannabis doctor side in some ways, because I don't like people when people talk about it like it's only beneficial, it's only good. I don't think there's anything. Yeah. Some people die when you give them peanuts, right?
It's real talk,
Everything is different.
Same thing with alcohol. Some people should not drink.
Oh, yeah.
It's the complete opposite.
Yeah, I had a friend who quit drinking, but he would get to a point, but when he was drinking, he would drink and he would get gerbil eyes, like he was gone. Like, it was like talking to a gerbil. Like, where are you? You're not there. Like shark eyes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like you're gone. Like now you're just like an automaton, just running around. Like you don't even know what you're. And he would black out.
Cigars relax me too.
Yeah.
Which is it's just weird how that works because I'm like I hate cigarettes.
Right.
But cigars.
It's a nice. Cigars give you a nice relax.
No, I do it probably. I smoke a cigar I think last time I smoked a cigar was with you. That was
well, they're good for conversations.
Yeah,
I think they're great for conversations. They give you this when you smoke a cigar, it's just like it's also like a manly thing to do. You have a cigar, a glass of whiskey, you talk some shit.
Relax.
It's nice. It's a relaxing thing, but it's I like people to be able to make their own choices. The thing that drives me the most crazy about weed is the fact that it's illegal. Because I think that if it was legal, then we could have regulated marijuana where you knew exactly what the fuck you're getting.
And that's a crazy thing. I don't want to, I don't like the secondhand smoke of weed. I don't like being around it. However, I do think it should be legal.
I think almost everything should be legal. And I think the argument against that is kind of silly because you look at the amount of cocaine that makes its way into this country that's laced with fentanyl, and people start dying left and right because it's unregulated.
The way that is
it's getting crazy.
Like no one's talking about how fucking bad that is right now.
Well, one thing they're talking about is the amount of people that have died of overdose, 18 to 49. It's the number one killer of people 18 to 49.
And no one's talking about it.
And no one's talking about that. While they're trying to ban guns, like, what are you doing to stop the cartel from bringing fentanyl-laced cocaine in? Because, and this is an uncomfortable statement, this is coming from a person who's never done cocaine in his life. If you had legal cocaine, you would kill most of those deaths, or you would eliminate. That's a bad word. Kill. You would eliminate most of the deaths due to overdose from fentanyl.
Yeah.
And that's a lot, man.
That's a lot.
You would save 100,000 lives, probably.
It's crazy how this shit is decimating people.
And it's only been in the last 10 years. Yeah. That's what's nuts. I mean, I think fentanyl started making its way into the country somewhere in the 10s, right? Like 2012 or 13 or something.
That's recent.
Recent.
Holy crap, that's recent.
Like, when did fentanyl overdoses start making their way into the United States? And by the way, all the precursors for that shit come from China, and they all go into Mexico, and people are profiting, and it's a dirty business, man, where billions and billions of dollars are being generated, and they're being generated exclusively by illegal drug cartels. And there's nothing you can do about that. And the amount of resources they have because of that, I mean, you've seen some of the fucking warfare that they have, the cartel warfare. Holy shit.
The irony behind it is, if you want to talk about how gun control doesn't stop criminals from getting guns, look at Mexico.
Yeah.
You can barely own anything in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we all know what goes on there.
Yeah.
Of course, people will dismiss it and say, well, it's a third world country and so forth and so on.
It's basically connected to us in a way that you could get easily across. It's like the idea that it's hard to get from Mexico to the United States is not. Have you ever gone to the coast? Go to the coast near San Diego. All you have to do is swim over here. Literally. You could just jump in the water, swim over around the little barrier, and you're in the United States.
I mean, I grew up on the southwest side of Houston. Like, I know all too well.
They're coming in by the droves.
Yeah.
There was a number they had the other day where they were talking about the number of illegal aliens that make their way through the southern border every day, and it's astounding.
Yeah.
It's in the thousands every day.
It's
So if you have 1,000 let's just say it's 1,000. That is more than 250,000 a year.
yeah. But I mean, it demonstrates how porous it is. Like,
Yes.
so if that many people are coming over here, you have to think about how easy it is for the people we really don't want over here getting over here.
Right. And how many people are coming over here with fentanyl?
No, exactly.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, fentanyl is so crazy that the tiniest amount will kill you.
That's what's so creepy about it.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like a tiny little pinch, and you're dead. It's nuts. Like, what are the what did I ask you to Google?
I mean,
What did
when did it start?
Yeah, when did fentanyl start?
It was invented in 1959 or 1960, but the
When-
drug overdoses maybe in like 2013. I can't tell exactly.
Yeah, so somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years ago, it started happening.
That's pretty damn recent.
It's pretty damn recent.
pretty damn
and the
recent.
fact that they just put it in other stuff, they put it in ecstasy, they put it
Yeah,
in
no one knows what they're
street
getting anymore.
Xanax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what's his face died? Mac Miller. what
Tom
was the other
Petty.
one?
That's how Tom Petty died. Prince. That's how Prince died.
Yeah. Who's
Yeah.
the other kid? Who I actually listen to a lot.
Juice WRLD.
Juice WRLD. Who's the other?
A lot of people, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people died from that shit. It's a scary drug.
Lil Pete.
Yeah, it's just scary because it's so potent. And there's apparently something that's way more potent than fentanyl.
Yeah, I think I heard something about that too.
Yeah, there's some new shit.
I'm
that's-
like, God, like how much?
yeah, like what? It's like someone saying, "I want a better nuclear weapon. I want a nuclear weapon that blows a planet to smithereens instantly."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's the problem with technological advancement is that they can create things that are better that are already horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, better and they're
It's
more
twofold.
effective.
Yeah, it's a double-edged
Yeah.
sword that a lot of people don't.
What does it say here? Tallahassee Attorney General. Okay, listen to this. There's stuff called ISO. Isotretinoin? How say that? Try to say that for me.
Isotretinoin?
Isotretinoin. Okay, commonly referred to as ISO. According to reports, ISO is approximately 20 to 100 times stronger than fentanyl.
That's a nuke.
yeah.
that's.
Who's out there snorting
That's
ISO?
a nuke.
Who's out there, bro? This fentanyl ain't shit. He's doing
gosh.
Scarface piles of fentanyl.
Man, that is. I mean, how much dopamine do you really want?
Oh, I think people are just trying to die. I don't know. I mean,
or escape.
There's just so many people in pain.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
Which is weird because it's like we just want to sweep it. And I'll be the first to admit, like dealing with that stuff and getting to the underlying issues of it is extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated. It's complex. It's hard. However, we've got to start somewhere. They're so eager to say, "Let's start with banning this." It's like, okay, but even if you got to where you got, you're gonna have to deal with this issue.
Yeah.
No matter what. And so, why not take the energy and the focus in dealing with that?
How do you deal with it, though? Like, what would be the move to stop fentanyl from getting into this country? I mean, the real hard truth is people don't want fentanyl. Mm-hmm. That's not what they want.
Yeah.
They want to get high, and they want to get high in a way where, you know who Dr. Carl Hart is?
Carl Hart, that sounds so familiar.
I've had him on my podcast several times, and he's a brilliant professor at Columbia who also does drugs and talks openly about. I mean, he looks like a guy who does drugs.
Yeah.
He's got dreads but he's brilliant, and he's unusual in the fact that he was a clean, straight-laced research professor who, upon his examination of these drugs in a research setting, started realizing that our ideas of them were completely exaggerated and screwed. And he enjoys heroin. But he'll snort a little bit of it and like have great conversations and have a wonderful time with his wife. But he talks bravely about it. Where like if you're a fucking professor at a university, like who the fuck is out there talking about doing Schedule I drugs?
Yeah.
He
I mean,
does.
look, I'm not at all near anywhere that shit. But I mean,
coffee. Yeah. You
like
get
I know
addicted to
how I
that.
feel when I drink this shit in the morning.
Yeah.
So I can't really judge someone who does that personally.
Well, I've never done heroin either, but I get it. I understand what he's saying because you know, and he's talking about how if we did have access to clean cocaine, where it was just cocaine, which very few
Different
people
story,
have, he's like,
everything's stepped on and weird.
yes, you would have an understanding of what it is. It's like it's way better for you than alcohol, probably. Like if you, I mean, I don't know. I've never done it, but
I'm no fool to understand what the abuse of this can do. I mean, so like I said, like everybody has their vices, right?
Yeah.
And some people can handle their vices better than others. And so that's why for me, I'm not really big on the, you know, make all drugs illegal bandwagon.
No, that's stupid. But who's to say? The problem, like I always use this analogy. I'm like, if there was only 3 people on Earth, you, me, and Jamie, and then Jamie decided, oh, alcohol should be illegal. We're gonna lock you all up, and we'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about,
Jamie.
dude? And Jamie wants to put us in a cage because we drink alcohol. That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Well, why is it? Because the real numbers of people that want it to be illegal and that enforce it are so small in comparison to the general population.
I mean, but it's literally creating an economy that is more destructive than the actual drug itself.
Right, and you're propping up murderers. You're propping up this fucking cartel violence.
That's what I'm getting at. It's like
crazy.
literally, like,
it doesn't work.
like a lot of the violence in the inner city is because of is driven by the narco economy that exists there.
Exactly. But how would you ever transition to making it legal? It's like once that genie's out of the
something
bottle,
to be said about that.
how do you put it back in? How would you ever?
Does it really matter? It's already out of.
guess,
It's out there as is.
Right, but if someone's child died of an overdose because they made cocaine legal and they just started doing cocaine, they had a heart attack and died, you'd be like, blood is on your hands. I'm like, are you sure? Because it's not like it's hard to get it now. But we would have to have that kind of really uncomfortable conversation.
Overdose on this.
It's pretty hard to I mean, that's not hard to overdose on alcohol. I shouldn't say that. But if you don't know what
I see
you're
what you
doing,
mean. I mean, there's a quantity level of consumption that's required in order to get to that point.
And you can always throw up.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think it's an easy solution. I think making drugs legal, it would be a very difficult growing period or learning period.
Because even me, I'm more apathetic to whether or not they should be legal. That's that's my stance. I'm kind of just apathetic to it. Because largely I don't have the answers as to how do we regulate that.
Right.
But at the same time, I can't see how destructive they are as far as being illegal, and the economies that are created around it because of the illegality. It's no different than when we were dealing with the prohibition of alcohol.
Well, that's what made all the fucking mafia guys rich.
For Christ's sake, that's where we got the genesis of our modern day gun laws.
Really?
Yeah, because of the violence that was taking place during that time period. That's why full autos are borderline illegal for any of us to own, because of what was happening during that time period.
No shit.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it makes sense. They had those old ones with the circle thing, the circle magazine.
Joe Mags.
Yeah, that is a wild time when you think about the amount of money that was transferred to illegal organizations just because people wanted alcohol and the government had decided. What was the genesis of that? Like, who decided that alcohol should be illegal? And how'd they pull that off? Because it was only illegal in America, right? It wasn't illegal in Europe, was it?
I don't think so. I remember watching a documentary about this, and I forgot
I've looked
everything.
into this too a few times. Temperance movement, they tried to start it a few times, and it didn't really take hold. And then somewhere in Ohio that it clicked.
Always
it was
Ohio. All roads lead to Ohio.
Yeah, there's a spot called Temperance Row. You can still go visit the area. But when I looked into that, I found out it wasn't just happening there. It was happening in a few places. I don't know if it was a religious thing or a political thing, but it was one of the two, which could have been at that time the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, people were just kind of dumb back then too, in terms of like the repercussions of things. Like they had no idea. They probably thought they were going to make a better society.
Yeah.
We're going to build a better society.
Well, there's an oversimplification of things,
right?
And I think too, to a certain degree, like especially when we talk about the gun stuff too, I think we create the problems because we're always looking to our leaders to give us oversimplified solutions to complex issues, and we don't give them the leeway to try to figure it out. We want the answers now.
Yeah.
So we kind of almost, to a certain degree, force them to say, let me grab on to the easiest, most visible way to say I'm solving this solution so they can get off my back. Or I can look like I'm not incompetent. Because we want our solutions now, we want them fast, and we want them easy. And that's, I think, the major problem that we're having in terms of our dynamic and relationship with our leaders and the public as a whole. It's because we always want an oversimplified solution to very complex problems. And we don't give them enough time. We don't even give ourselves enough time to work through the problem. We just don't.
We have so many unresolved, super complex problems in this country too, like extreme poverty.
Yeah.
What's happening in certain inner cities like the South Side of Chicago, like Detroit, Baltimore. There's many of them that you could point to
all day long
that have never changed.
Nope.
They're the same as they were decades ago.
No.
If anything, they've gotten worse.
Yep.
And there's no effort to like really have a comprehensive national conversation
stuff.
about it. Right.
Superficial. Oh, we're going to be tougher on crime, and
when Ukraine rolls around, we've got all the fucking all hands on deck. It's wild.
Yeah. We send guns and shit to our friends.
Yeah.
But people
missiles and shit.
Yeah. People of America, no. We're not giving you guns so that you can hold us accountable.
Right. And also, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening over there? Like, how is this gonna escalate? Like, I'm fucking terrified that this could escalate to nuclear war. Yeah. Terrified.
I mean, I just did a video about Taiwan, where their people are starting to learn to train how to use guns. I mean, they're using airsoft guns to do it, but they're learning how to use firearms in the event China decides to invade, which is also an interesting thing. And I keep telling people this all the time when we talk about, with respect to the Second Amendment. Like, people forget that the Second Amendment wasn't written for hunting. It wasn't written for sport shooting. It was written so that people had a means to check a potential tyrannical government, foreign or domestic.
Right, because they came from a tyrannical government. And that's why this country was formed.
Exactly. And people, I hear this argument all the time. They're like, well, it was talking about the militia. And I'm like, let's say that, like, just take it outside of the political realm. It makes no sense. If the purpose that it was written was to allow the people to have the ability to check a potential tyrannical government, domestic or foreign, why would they write in the Constitution telling the government that they have the ability to own firearms? It makes no sense.
Right.
And then if it's designed for the people to be able to check a potential tyrannical government, foreign or domestic, does it make sense that the people would have to go to that government that's being tyrannical to get the guns to fight back against that government?
Right.
That makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
So I find it odd when people try to make this argument, and I'm like, just even on the intellectual level, right? There's the operative clause and then the operative clause and the prefatory clause. People don't understand how that works. It's like they're basically saying, in the beginning of the statement, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. This is why we're about to say what we're about to say after this.
Right.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, because we understand that a militia, which is comprised of the people, is needed in order to protect the security of the state we just created.
Yeah, and when they say that's when people had muskets, yeah, the government too, you fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the government had muskets back then too.
And it was the top of the top weapon at the time. I'm just trying to say that as simply as possible. Their musket was the equivalent of our AR right now.
Yeah. And what scares me is that people think that the people that are in the military would never turn on the citizens. I'm like, you don't know people.
You don't.
They could other people so easily. Yep. They could decide that those people that are against them are the enemy and the enemy of the state, the enemy of the government.
Who did, like, Tiananmen Square? And the only reason I say Tiananmen Square is because I just recently watched a video about it again because I was just refreshing my brain about it. Who do you think the people were who came in and killed the people who were protesting?
Right.
It was the military.
Right.
The same military.
Yeah, and there was a video of a woman, by the way, who was talking about taking arms up against the people. And this was about lockdowns during COVID. And she was talking about, if you don't think that I would take arms against you and shoot you, that you're crazy.
I saw that.
Did you see that video?
I'm
like, bitch, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, what a weird power trip you're on. You're talking about shooting people that don't want to get vaccinated?
Think about that.
Wild.
Yeah. And then you're going to tell me that I'm supposed to trust the government to protect me without firearms.
Because when you give a person a gun and you give a person this sense of power and then give a person this sense of entitlement, that they're entitled to tell people what to do and enforce laws, like, there's just a natural tendency that people have.
Which is why the Founding Fathers understood that. So the only check against that is for the people to have firearms too.
But we still have this problem with mass shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So what the fuck is the solution to temper that, to stop that, to mitigate that, to do something to keep evil, destroyed, disturbed people
from getting their hands on guns. So let's put things in the framework of the reality we are in. The vast majority of the people who are committing mass shootings are getting their guns legally. They're not. It's not like they're getting them off the streets legally. They're getting them legally, and the way they're able to get them legally is because they're passing background checks. Vast majority of mass shooters pass background checks to get their guns. They're passing background checks because they don't have criminal history. They don't. So if you're just going to look at this from a gun control perspective, your only option is to ban guns. That is your only option. If you're only going to look at this from a gun control perspective, because we already have everything in place to prevent this. We have background checks. They're passing them, right? So they're passing background checks because they don't have criminal histories, and they're getting these guns, and they're committing violence. And in the event that they do have a history that could have prevented them from doing it, the system failed. The Charleston shooter, he shouldn't have never had the gun. But the way the system was executed, the way they conducted the background check, there was a mistake. He got his hands on a gun. What, are you going to make the background check more back-checkier? No, because the system is run by humans that are inherently flawed. So what do we do when the system breaks down, even though we have things in place to stop it? You have to be in a position to deal with the threat immediately. Nobody likes that because the idea of self-defense in the moment is ugly. It's nasty. It sucks. You fight. You understand what that's like. At the end of the day, first and foremost, you need to put yourself in a position to protect yourself and stop it immediately. Then we can start working our way towards, all right, how do we deal with the even more complex issues? Because telling me that I just can't own this gun or that gun or this gun, it's lunacy and it's moronic. We have over 400 million guns in this country. You think you're going to write a law that says we're not allowed to have AR-15s anymore, and now you're no longer going to see mass shootings where AR-15s are involved? Doesn't make sense. And then even if you do, AR-15s make up less than a fraction of the guns used in actual gun deaths.
So what is the solution if these people are passing background checks and they are getting guns legally and they're still committing these horrific mass murders? What's the solution?
The solution is to empower the people to stop them when they show up. That's what people don't like. Well, think about it.
There's no mental health solution. There's nothing we can do in terms of.
So from a mental health perspective, we can have the conversation about what type of evaluation would take place that would preclude what type of diagnosis would be required to preclude somebody from their Second Amendment right to own a firearm, even though they've actually never committed a crime. That's the question. That's the question we have to address. Where's that line? So somebody who has anxiety, are we going to prevent them from owning a gun?
Right.
Somebody who has transient depression, are we going to prevent them from owning a gun because they get depressed sometimes? Where's that line? And so that's where things start getting excessively complicated and incredibly subjective. Because which doctors are going to make this decision? Right?
Right.
Well, one doctor who's like, I mean, people who have anxiety or borderline depression or the case may be, they're not violent people. And then you have another doctor who is on the payroll of some big timer who is incredibly anti-gun and says, nope, I need you to find that anybody who has anxiety won't be allowed to have a firearm. But then the whole mental health spectrum is so broad and so complicated that you're not going to get anything as definitive as anybody who has anxiety or depression can't own guns. You're not going to get that. It has to be action-based. Or potentially action-based. If you're in the process of, say, like you can be charged with attempted murder because you took substantial steps to go and murder somebody. You may not have been able to do it, but you took substantial steps to do it. So therefore, we can charge you with attempted murder. Now, somebody, for instance, there have been numerous stories where people have said they've written, I'm going to kill these people. They have lists of names they're going to do. They've acquired firearms. They've shown behavior that says that they're willing to do these things. You can take a substantial step enough to say you are a potential mass shooter, and you can be charged with that. We have laws to deal with that. So I don't understand why people don't understand the reality of that. It's not as simple as saying, well, everyone just needs to have a mental health evaluation, because where's the standard?
Right, it is subjective. Like
it's
someone can decide
subjective.
if you like certain movies, if you listen to certain
Something's wrong.
music, you play video games.
And that puts the power in the hands of the government, who've already demonstrated really don't want us to have guns to begin with. And that's the problem.
And then there's this thing that when people want to have a solution, then also all of a sudden it becomes political.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't become political in that there's necessarily like some sort of some sort of an interest to get the people unarmed as much as there is to come up with at least a paper solution that makes people satisfied that their politicians are doing the work.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because and that's another thing that doesn't get done very well is putting, and I hate boxes, but for the sake of making the necessary distinctions of the people having the conversations, right? You have the politicians like they really don't want anyone to have guns. They're there. Then you have people who just hate guns, don't want to be a part of that. There are people who really just want solutions, right? They're like, look, people are dying. We need to do something. This seems like the easiest thing to do because I think it'll work. There are a lot of people like that. Like their motivation, everything about it it's positive. It's good. They have the same desire that the people in the gun community have to figure out a way to save lives. But at a certain point, we do have to understand, we have to confront reality. 400 million guns in this country. We have over 300 million people in this country. Just those numbers alone, they're going to be substantially more crazy people who haven't done anything crazy than other places. People always want to compare us to the UK. So the UK as a whole is about the size of New York. So naturally, you're just going to have more people willing to do crazy stuff like that because we have so many people.
Right.
From different backgrounds, and it's not, and just so diverse in terms of upbringing, you name it. So we're going to be more exposed to people who are willing to do things like that. So as a result of that, we need to empower the people who aren't like that to be able to stop it when it arises. And you don't do that by making people defenseless. It just doesn't work that way.
So what you're offering is a pragmatic solution to deal with the very real problem that we have here. Not looking at it in terms of like a romantic version of how we're going to take away all the bad guns and all the bad violence is going to stop. You're looking at it in terms of like, what are the actual facts? What are we actually dealing with? And what is the only actionable solution?
Yeah, because if you ban AR-15s, or let's say in some cases, and Joe's actually said he wanted to ban semi-automatic weapons, cool. But it means nothing when the guy shows up to my house to kick in my door, has one.
All you need is a double-barrel shotgun. You go outside and shoot one off into the air, and what was I talking about? There's 100 billion people with guns, and over 500% of them are from jail or something.
But Joe is also a FUD. Like, he just has a very antiquated way of looking at
That's a funny thing, the FUD. People don't even know what that means. I know what it means. Elmer FUD. Like, that's how people talk about people that hunt, that use bolt-action rifles.
Yeah.
People like you, real gun enthusiasts like yourself,
like, okay,
they
guy.
always, they call him Elmer Fuds.
Yeah, but that's why he's always equating everything to the idea of hunting.
Yeah.
Because that's its only perspective. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. Yeah. Absolutely nothing to do with hunting.
Yeah.
But he needs to process it through that lens, because that's the only way he's been in politics his entire life.
Yeah.
He's been surrounded by protection his entire life. So
that's the thing, right? They all want protection. They all want armed guards, which is wild. The people that are anti-gun also want armed guards, which is fucking wild.
Here's the crazy thing. We say we want AR-15s to protect ourselves and protect our life, right? The people who are protecting Joe Biden are protecting his life. Yeah. And they also have AR-15s. Yeah. So how can you then turn around and look at me and say, I don't know why you need an AR-15 to protect your life? You have 9 dudes around you with the goddamn same gun that you're telling me I shouldn't have to protect my life. Fuck you. I'm sorry.
And on that, let's wrap it up. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming here. Colion Noir on Instagram. What's your website? The People Pew Life?
Shop.MrColionNoir.com is where I have all like my 2A, Pro 2A merch, and MrColionNoir.com is like blog and so
YouTube.
forth. YouTube, MrColionNoir.com.
All right. Thank you.
No, Mr. Colion.
All right. Bye, everybody.